Chapter 1046. Kaboom! A loud, muffled sound rang out. The two bloody swords exploded at the same time, turning into thousands of bloody fragments, splashing in all directions. Suddenly, the bloody light in the training field was overflowing, and the wind was raging. Everyone saw with their own eyes that the demon youth was sent flying by Ji Tianqing's sword. He spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying dozens of feet away. He fell on the ground and rolled a dozen times. After that, the demon youth couldn't get up anymore. Seeing this scene, the thousands of spectators were stunned. They opened their eyes wide, and their faces were full of shock. In the Blood Crystal tribe, the demon youth was a famous young genius, and his fighting power was outstanding. If it wasn't for that, he wouldn't have been able to win 4 matches in a row and defeat 4 young experts so easily. However, no one expected that Ji Tianqing would use only one sword to severely injure him and make him lose his fighting power. How terrifying was Ji Tianqing's power! For a moment, thousands of spectators were looking at Ji Tianqing. Their eyes were full of curiosity and respect. Even the chief of the tribe had a whole new level of respect for him. His eyes were shining as he looked at him. "Oolong, if I remember correctly, you don't seem to be a member of our Blood Crystal tribe, right?" The chief stood on the high platform in the training field, looking down at Ji Tianqing. He said in a dignified tone. Ji Tianqing performed the demon etiquette and said calmly, "Chief is right. I come from the far south, and I am the #1 genius of the Ula tribe. Our tribe is too small, and I have great ambitions. I don't want to be mediocre, so I left my home and came here a few days ago." After listening to his explanation, the spectators were enlightened. The chief of the tribe wasn't angry. Instead, he was gratified. He nodded and said, "Very good. This is the ideal and ambition of a young genius. In the future, you will be a member of our Blood Crystal tribe. I hope you can win first place and make our Blood Crystal tribe famous." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and said expressionlessly, "Thank you, Chief. I will do my best." The chief nodded with satisfaction and waved his hand to signal the 2 guards to carry the injured demon youth away. Next, Ji Tianqing stood in the middle of the training field, waiting to accept the challenges of the other demon youths. The chief took out the parchment and read out the name of a young demon. The youth from the demon clan, whose body was as sturdy as a black bear, stepped onto the martial arts practice field with heavy footsteps. His eyes glowed red as he stared at Ji Tianqing. His voice was like a broken gong as he shouted, "Wulong, you outsider, don't even think about taking first place. The honor belongs to us." After saying that, he rushed towards Ji Tianqing without hesitation, waving his fists and blasting out 8 fist lights condensed from blood light. Ji Tianqing's figure was immediately enveloped by the enormous fist radiance. He seemed to be surrounded by danger and was on the verge of death. However, his expression did not change. He calmly raised his arms and fiercely threw out 2 huge bloody fist shadows. Bang bang! In a deafening muffled sound, the fist radiance released by the demon youth exploded on the spot. The 2 fist shadows that Ji Tianqing unleashed, however, erupted with an incomparably violent power that ruthlessly bombarded the demon clan youth. Bang! With a muffled explosion, the demon youth was blown away. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. His vision turned black and he fainted. He had also heavily injured his opponent with one move. Moreover, when his opponent used a sword technique, he used a sword technique to counter it. When his opponent used a fist technique, he used a fist technique to counter it. Whether it was his sword technique or his fist technique, they were both very simple and crude. With an incomparably domineering attitude, he crushed his opponent. The thousands of demon commoners watching were once again stunned and let out waves of exclamations and shouts. The chief's expression became even more gratified. His eyes surged with joy as he continued to read out the next name. The third demon youth stepped onto the martial arts practice field and attacked Ji Tianqing with all his might. This person used a secret technique of the demon race. Monstrous bloody light condensed into a demonic dragon and fiercely attacked Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing immediately used what he had learned. He used a secret technique of the demon race that he had secretly learned. He absorbed the bloody light in all directions and condensed it into a demonic dragon that attacked his opponent. Boom! A loud sound shook the sky. The two bloody demonic dragons exploded at the same time, turning into thousands of pieces that scattered on the martial arts practice field. A violent hurricane spread out, shaking the dozen or so demon youths on the martial arts practice field and forcing them to retreat a dozen steps. Ji Tianqing's opponent had already been blown 100 meters away by the bloody demonic dragon. He was severely injured and spat out blood on the ground. He could not even get up. Another insta-kill. The thousands of demon commoners who had witnessed Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength all exclaimed in shock. They were full of respect and admiration for him. Next, the fourth demon youth stepped onto the stage to challenge. This person suffered the same fate as the previous three. He was blasted flying by Ji Tianqing with a single move. He was heavily injured and spat out blood as he fell to the ground. The remaining few demon youths stepped onto the stage in succession and challenged Ji Tianqing. The 5th, 6th, 7th. Until the 10th demon youth challenged Ji Tianqing, the result was the same. No matter if it was the 5th level, 8th level, or 9th level of the origin core stage, all of the 10 demon youths were heavily injured by Ji Tianqing with a single move. Fortunately, the tribe's patriarch had said long ago that the rules of the competition did not forbid injuries and bleeding, but they could not kill. Otherwise, Ji Tianqing would really want to blast all his opponents into pieces. Because he knew that these demon youths were all ferocious and bloodthirsty. Even if they couldn't become the personal guards of the Saintess, they would still be selected as warriors to rush to the Western Desolation battlefield and slaughter the demon commoners. Not long after, these people would be the executioners that slaughtered the commoners of the human and demon races. Unfortunately, for the sake of concealing his identity and rescuing Yun Yao, he could only restrain his killing intent. After the 10 demon youths were all defeated, there was no one else that stepped onto the stage to challenge. The selection of the Saintess personal guards ended just like that, and Ji Tianqing seized the first place without hesitation. He used a valiant and invincible manner to consecutively defeat 10 opponents, causing everyone's eyeballs to fall out from shock as they roared madly in excitement. The entire martial arts practice grounds was in an uproar as everyone was immersed in enormous shock and disbelief. No one was able to believe that such an abnormal genius would actually appear in a small tribe that was on the verge of annihilation. This was simply too unbelievable. The tribe's patriarch was madly excited as well, as if he'd picked up a rare treasure. He waved his dark gold scepter and continuously shouted a few times before making everyone quiet down. I announce that Oolong has obtained the first place in the selection of the Saintess personal guards this time. Oolong, you have to stay in our blood crystal tribe and wait for 20 days. After 20 days, you have to represent our blood crystal tribe and rush to White Mountain City to participate in the arena competition. Chapter 1047. No matter how excited the chief and the demon citizens were, Ji Tianqing remained expressionless and indifferent. Being in the demon tribe, all he saw was the ugliness and brutality of the demon race. If not for the plan and goal in his heart, he really wanted to start a massacre and kill all these demons. He was able to restrain his murderous aura and did not show any hatred or enmity. This was already very restrained. After the competition for the Saintess's personal guard ended, under the arrangement of the chief, he stayed in a house in the east of the town. It was an old house, and no one had lived in it for a long time. The light in the house was dim and the atmosphere was cold. There were still many traces of fighting. Ji Tianqing saw that the demon citizens did not dare to come close, so he asked around and found out that a disaster had happened in this house before. He did not mind this and felt that it was more convenient. After all, he had to stay here for 20 days before he could go to Baishan City to participate in the arena competition. During this time, he would rather hide in the old house and cultivate. He did not want to be disturbed by other demons. It was late at night. Ji Tianqing settled down in the old house and chatted with the chief for a while. "Chief, thank you for arranging a place for me to stay. In these 20 days, I want to cultivate in seclusion and work hard to increase my strength." The chief quickly nodded and said, "That's good. You can focus on cultivating here and strive to win glory for our blood crystal tribe. You can cultivate in seclusion without worry. I will inform the others and not let anyone disturb you." After that, the chief left with his people. Ji Tianqing was the only one left in the dark and gloomy mansion. He found a secret room for cultivation. After using his magic power to clean up the dust and stones, he set up 2 defensive formations. Of course, the formations he set up were of the heaven origin level. They could conceal the movements and energy waves in the secret room. And the power he used to set up the formations was the demon race's bloody demonic aura. There were more than 80,000 demons living in an area of a few dozen miles. The demonic aura here was very abundant. It was convenient for him to imitate the demon race's martial arts and secret techniques. At dawn, he took out his main body from the sword world. Then, his soul left Oolong's body and returned to his body. He placed Oolong's body in the sword world and began to cultivate in seclusion. Of course, what he wanted to cultivate wasn't the demon race's martial arts or secret techniques, but the 9 swords of the Burial of Heaven. Burial of Heaven, I have to wait in the Blood Crystal Tribe for 20 days before I can go to White Mountain City. In these 20 days, I want to try to cultivate the 9 swords of the Burial of Heaven. Even if I can't master it, I can at least deepen my understanding of it. Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged in the secret chamber and spoke to Burial of Heaven via soul transmission. Burial of Heaven pondered for a moment, then said in a solemn tone, "That's good. The 9 swords of Burial of Heaven is a Kenshin secret art that you'll have to learn sooner or later. In the future, when you deal with soul refinement realm cultivators, you'll definitely have to use these 9 sword techniques. The earlier you comprehend them, the better. Now, I'll teach you the first move of the 9 swords of the Burial of Heaven, sword draw. This is the foundation of this sword technique, but it's also the sword technique that requires you to practice 1,000,000 times. When you practice it to the limit, you'll be able to connect with God." Hearing Burial of Heaven's words, Ji Tianqing was startled. He frowned and asked, "Burial of Heaven, you said before that this is a half-step God realm sword technique, and it's also a sword technique that's simple. But, the first move is just sword draw. Isn't that too simple? In the mortal world, even body refinement realm cultivators who haven't cultivated true essence would practice sword draw diligently." Burial of Heaven didn't deny his words. He said earnestly, "In today's martial arts world, everyone pursues gorgeous and splendid martial arts moves in order to shock people and show off their strength. Especially the cultivators above the sky origin realm, they can easily break mountains and break rivers, release true essence light that fills the sky, and shatter the earth. But in fact, these are all flashy and impractical actions that waste true essence. The 9 swords of the Burial of Heaven created by Kenshin has reached the realm of returning to simplicity. There's no need for gorgeous scenes and light. He's the god of the sword. He's read all the sword techniques in the world and reached the realm of 10,000 swords. He merged all the complicated and profound sword techniques together to create this most labor-saving, simple, and crude sword technique. But the power of this sword technique is invincible below the God realm. No sword technique can match it." Burial of Heaven's voice was low, and his tone contained unquestionable majesty and dominance. After Ji Tianqing heard this, he had many insights in his heart. He immediately understood what kind of sword technique the 9 swords of the Burial of Heaven was. So that's how it is. Burial of Heaven, let's start cultivating. Burial of Heaven responded and said in a serious tone, "The first move of the Burial of Heaven's 9 swords, the sword-drawing technique, draws the divine sword and splits the mountains and rivers. Wielding the sword, one's heroic spirit soars into the sky," although the sword-drawing technique sounded very simple. Burial of Heaven explained hundreds of words to Ji Tianqing, teaching him the trick of cultivating the sword-drawing technique, as well as the route and method of exerting force. Although these were all the basics of sword techniques, Kenshin had merged countless sword techniques in the world into this sword technique. Just one sword-drawing technique contained 365 changes and could counter all the sword techniques in the world. Ji Tianqing immersed himself in the sword technique cultivation and focused on comprehending. Soon, he entered a state of selflessness and forgot about the passage of time. About 10 days later, he finally understood the essence of the sword-drawing technique and vaguely touched the threshold of this sword technique. Next, he began to circulate his dermic powers according to the chant and simulated the hundreds of changes of the sword-drawing technique in his soul. He began to cultivate diligently. Soon, another 8 days passed. On the morning of the 19th day, Ji Tianqing ended his cultivation and opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, an invisible sword light appeared in his eyes. It was dazzling and sharp. Swoosh! That sharp and oppressive invisible sword intent actually lit up the gloomy secret room and tore the air into pieces. Ji Tianqing slowly stood up and looked at the wall with a serious and solemn expression. The dark brown stone wall was very hard and firm. It was also protected by a heavenly origin stage array. He did not use his dermic powers or the broken sword. He slowly raised his right hand and used the sword-drawing technique. Although he did not have a sword in his hand, the sword was in his heart. The invisible sharp sword qi condensed into an invisible sword. With a wave of his right palm, it was unsheathed at lightning speed. The violent sword qi that seemed to be able to tear the world apart slashed the wall of the secret room. Crack! At that moment, a crisp explosion sounded. The heavenly origin stage array protecting the secret room was destroyed by the invisible sword qi and collapsed on the spot. The 2-meter thick stone wall that was as sturdy as a city wall also collapsed on the spot and turned into a pile of rubble. Not only that, but the power of the invisible sword qi did not dissipate. It went through the secret room's wall and destroyed 3 houses before dissipating. The dilapidated old house was turned into a pile of rubble on the spot. It was a complete mess. Ji Tianqing slowly retracted his right hand. His eyes shone with joy and his lips curled into a smile. Chapter 1048. Burial of Heaven once said that with Ji Tianqing's talent and comprehension, he would need at least a month to master the first move of Burial of Heaven's 9 swords. But he did not expect that Ji Tianqing would only use 18 days to master the first move. Although Ji Tianqing was just a beginner and had not understood the essence of this sword move, let alone the charm of the sword move. But he had indeed succeeded, and he had successfully used it in one move. This made Burial of Heaven exclaim in amazement and feel that it was unbelievable. It also had a deeper understanding of Ji Tianqing's talent and comprehension. Ji Tianqing did not use his true essence or mana, and only used his sword intent and invisible sword qi to destroy half of the house. Such terrifying and shocking power was something that even he himself had not expected. Looking at the brick ruins and the ground full of cracks and gullies, he excitedly clenched his fists, his eyes surging with light. As expected of a half-step divine realm sword move. This is just the beginner's first move, I have just mastered it, and it has such terrifying power. I did not even use my true essence, if I use my full strength, the power of this move is unimaginable. Burial of Heaven also felt the same, and said in a serious tone, Tianqing, you are just a beginner, when you practice this move 1,000,000 times, you will be able to understand the charm of the sword move. At that time, no matter if it is a spirit refinement realm expert, 1,000,000 soldiers, or thousands of miles of mountains and rivers, they will not be able to block the power of your move. Ji Tianqing nodded, and showed a look of expectation. At this time, he noticed that there was movement outside the old house, and many demons were looking inside. He knew that the sound of the house collapsing and the walls breaking must have alarmed the demons nearby. So, he quickly took out Black Dragon's body, and sent his divine soul into Black Dragon's body. He had just put his physical body into the sword world and there was a rush of footsteps outside the courtyard. "Greetings, Chieftain. Chieftain is here. Let's see what's going on inside." "Chief, there was a commotion in this house just now. It seems like someone is fighting." Following the voices of several demon commoners, the tribal chief came to the house with 2 guards. Ji Tianqing hurriedly went up to him and saluted, "Chieftain." The tribal chief looked at him expressionlessly and asked in a dignified tone, "Wulong, what's going on?" "I heard from the people that there was a fight just now." Ji Tianqing cupped his hands and replied calmly, "Chief, I think everyone has misunderstood. It's because I've been cultivating in seclusion for more than half a month and finally mastered a secret technique. When I came out of seclusion just now, I didn't control my strength, resulting in this result." After listening to his explanation, the tribal chief looked at him suspiciously and asked a few more questions. Ji Tianqing had already thought of an excuse and answered his questions one by one, dispelling the doubts in his heart. Before the tribal chief left, he said in a serious tone, "Wulong, tomorrow morning, I will send a commander to escort you to White Mountain City. Get ready." Ji Tianqing frowned and thought for a while. He shook his head and said, "Chief, I know how to get to White Mountain City. I can go there alone. There's no need to trouble the commander to escort me." Seeing that the tribal chief was still hesitating in considering this matter, he added, "Chieftain, please don't worry. I will rush to White Mountain City as fast as I can. I won't delay the journey. Also, if you give me the document and the token, I will participate in the competition as the #1 genius of the Blood Crystal tribe. I won't embarrass the Blood Crystal tribe." After listening to his words, the tribal chief reluctantly agreed. Then, the tribal chief took out a document and a token from his space ring and waved them in front of him. "Wulong, I can give you this document and token. I can also not send Commander Yu to escort you. But you have to make a blood god oath to be loyal to me and prove your loyalty to the Blood Crystal tribe. No matter if you can become the personal guard of the Saintess or not, don't forget that you are a member of the Blood Crystal tribe. I am the one who gave you this opportunity." The blood god oath was a kind of poison oath that was similar to Gu. It was made in the name of the blood god of the demon race. Once the oath was broken, one would have to bear the curse and torture of the bloodline. The tribal chief was obviously afraid that Ji Tianqing would never come back after leaving the Blood Crystal tribe. Only when Ji Tianqing made the blood god oath could he trust Ji Tianqing. This was the nature of the demon race. The most common way of doing things was to be cunning and suspicious, even to their own people. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was silent and was thinking about this matter, the tribal chief patted his shoulder and comforted him, "If you lose the competition, you have to come back to the Blood Crystal tribe immediately. I won't treat you badly. I will train you with all my strength." Ji Tianqing nodded, bowed to the sky with an emotionless face, and recited the blood god oath in a low voice. After he had made the oath, an invisible, mysterious force descended from the sky, invading his body in blood. No doubt, it was the power of the blood god oath. Once he broke the oath, his body would fester and turn into pus. His blood would dry up, and he would die in agony. However, this body was his own. Even if he had to bear the torture of the oath, it had nothing to do with him. Anyway, the blood god oath couldn't affect his god soul, so it wouldn't harm him. Seeing him make the blood god oath, the tribal chief gave him the document and the token. Then, he laughed contentedly and left. Ji Tianqing put away the document and the token. His eyes were dark as he watched the tribal chief leave. A murderous aura flashed in his eyes. The whole day passed quickly. The Blood Crystal tribe was bustling. People lined the streets to send off more than 1,000 warriors to the Heaven Chasm city to join the war. Those young demon race warriors were full of anticipation and excitement. They were eager to go to the Western Wasteland battlefield and slaughter the monster race people. That night, the mountains were dark, and not a sound could be heard. The tribal chief was in a good mood. He drank with the other leaders until midnight and then went back to his place to rest. However, he didn't know that Ji Tianqing had already sneaked into his place. When he entered the secret chamber and was about to operate his martial art to get rid of the drunkenness, Ji Tianqing suddenly showed up. He was just 3 steps away from the tribal chief, holding a mysterious, broken black sword in his hand. Shoo! Before the tribal chief could react, he had already drawn out the sword with lightning speed and slashed out a sharp beam of cold light that seemed to be able to tear the sky apart. Puff! The tribal chief was at the 8th level of the Sky Origin stage. He didn't even have a chance to dodge or defend. His body and head were chopped off by this powerful sword attack. His body was frozen on the spot. From his forehead to the left side of his abdomen, a half-meter long blood mark appeared. The blood mark was getting bigger and bigger. Dark purple demon blood gushed out. The tribal chief's body was cut into 2 halves, falling on the ground powerlessly. Ji Tianqing put away the broken sword and expressionlessly looked at the tribal chief's body on the ground. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. I have just mastered the sword drawing style. The first one I kill is you. It is your honor. He murmured and then casually shot out a red fire, covering the tribal chief's body in the demon blood on the ground. Suddenly, the tribal chief's body and blood were burning up. Soon, they were burned into ashes. All of this happened in the secret chamber. There was no loud noise, no sound, and no movement. Nobody would have thought that the tribal chief of the Blood Crystal tribe would die in the secret chamber just like that. Chapter 1049. Ji Tianqing had an irreconcilable enmity with the demons. No matter who he killed, it was natural for him to do so. Moreover, the chief of the tribe had forced him to swear the blood god oath. In this way, the chief had gotten what he wanted. He had successfully killed himself. Ji Tianqing's actions were very secretive. From the time he snuck into the chief's residence to the time he killed the chief, no one was alerted. 5 days after he left the Blood Crystal tribe, the high priest and the commanders of the Blood Crystal tribe found out that the chief was missing. 8 days later, after all kinds of investigations and searches, they confirmed that the chief was dead. However, the chief had died without a complete corpse. He didn't leave any clues. The cause of his death became a huge mystery that couldn't be solved for a long time. Of course, no one would suspect Ji Tianqing. On the evening of the 10th day, Ji Tianqing crossed millions of miles of mountains and ice fields and successfully arrived at White Mountain City. The so-called White Mountain City lived up to its name. This was an ancient and majestic city located in the heart of the northern desert, among the mountains. Hundreds of thousands of demons gathered in the city with a radius of 100 miles. Many of them were experts and warriors from different tribes. The city was covered in snow all year round, making it look like a city of ice and snow. The few mountains outside the city were also covered in thick snow. All that could be seen was a blazing white. This was how White Mountain City got its name. After arriving at White Mountain City, he wasn't far from the holy land of the demons, the Heavenly Devil Palace. It would take him about 10 days of travel. Within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, White Mountain City was not only a stronghold, but also a prosperous city in the heart of the northern desert. It was also the center of information in the northern desert. When Ji Tianqing arrived at White Mountain City, it was the time when the cold wind was blowing and snow was falling. Thick snow and ice were piled up outside the southern city gate. The strong wind rolled up the snow and ice, hitting the city wall. There were more than 20 guards in black iron armor guarding the city gate. They were all experts of the Origin Core realm. Ji Tianqing took out the documents and tokens of the Blood Crystal tribe. After giving them to the guards to check, he entered the city without a hitch. There were many wide streets in the city, and countless houses and buildings were built in a rough style. Of course, the streets and alleys in the city were all covered in ice and snow. There were very few pedestrians on the streets, so it was impossible to see the appearance of the city. Ji Tianqing stepped on the thick snow and walked along the main street to the center of the city. He wanted to find an inn to stay at. Coincidentally, there was an inn 100 steps away from him at the end of the street. Although the doors and windows of the inn were tightly shut, the dim gemstone lamp outside was still lit, and the inn was bustling with people. When he pushed open the door of the inn and stood at the entrance of the lobby, the biting cold wind mixed with snow and ice crystals rushed into the lobby of the inn. The noisy hall immediately quieted down. Everyone turned their heads to look at the door. After looking at Ji Tianqing for a while, they withdrew their gazes and continued to drink and chat. Only a few people near the door glared at him unhappily or cursed him a few times. Ji Tianqing closed the door, shook off the snow on his body, and stepped into the lobby. The lobby was very spacious. There were more than 20 tables, and all of them were filled with tall and strong demon warriors. On the tables in front of them, there were jars of earth spirit wine, and a few stacks of crude jerky and dried fruits. There was no other way. The resources of the northern desert were too poor. There were no flowers, plants, vegetables, birds, or animals. The food that the demon race could eat were mostly living things like beetles, rats, snakes, and ants that came from underground. In such a cold and snowy season, it was already the greatest happiness and enjoyment for these people to gather in the taverns and inns, drink a few bowls of strong earthly spirit wine, and eat a few pieces of dried gopher meat and dried fruits. Ji Tianqing saw an empty table in the corner, so he walked over and sat down. The waiter came to greet him. He took out 10 blood crystals and booked a room, and ordered a pot of hot earth spirit wine. Even though the earth spirit wine was very bad and tasted worse than the strong wine of the mortal world, he quietly sipped it. Not for anything else, he just wanted to stay in the hall for a while longer, listen to the other demons talk loudly, and gather some information from them. Before he drank half a bowl of wine, he heard the clamor of the crowd, mixed with the words Saintus and arena competition. Obviously, half of the demon warriors gathered in the lobby were from different tribes, and they had come to White Mountain City to participate in the arena competition. The other half were the residents of White Mountain City, and they were also paying attention to and discussing this matter. At this time, the door of the lobby opened again. 2 young demons, one male and one female, wearing black armor and a blood-red cloak, walked into the lobby side by side. The male was dark, and his face was upright. He had a simple and honest aura, and his body was as strong as a bear. The female was tall and fit. Her skin was light purple, and her purple hair reached her waist. Their eyes swept across the lobby and finally landed on Ji Tianqing. The simple and honest young man looked at the woman next to him and asked in a low voice, "Ah Luo, there's only one table that's empty. Shall we squeeze with that guy?" The purple-haired woman called Ah Luo nodded and said expressionlessly, "It's fine if we squeeze. De Xiong, go and tell him." As they spoke, they walked up to Ji Tianqing and stood in front of him. De Xiong nodded at Ji Tianqing and said in a low, muffled voice, "Brother, there are no more seats in the lobby. Can we sit down and rest for a while?" Ji Tianqing glanced at them and guessed the identity of the young man and woman. Both of them were around 30 years old, and their strength was at the 7th or 8th level origin core stage. Moreover, both of them looked travel-worn, so they must have rushed to White Mountain City from some tribe. Both of them were probably here to participate in the Saintess's personal guard selection. After De Xiong and Ah Luo sat down, they also ordered 2 jars of wine and dried meat. They ate and drank to recover their strength. Ji Tianqing sipped his wine expressionlessly, but his attention was focused on the demons at the tables nearby as he listened to their discussion. A young demon with a full beard was probably drunk. His face was flushed as he spoke loudly. I heard that the arena competition 5 days later will be held in the square in the city. It said that the Devil King has asked the Heaven Barbaric Devil Marshal to supervise the selection of Her Highness's personal guard selection. On the day of the competition, it said that the Heaven Barbaric Devil Marshal will be there personally to supervise the competition. The Heaven Barbaric Devil Marshal is the third Devil Marshal of our clan. His name is well known in the Northern Desert. It said that the Heaven Barbaric Devil Marshal was born with a heroic appearance. He was like the reincarnation of an ancient god with 4 wings and 6 arms. Chapter 1050. Hearing the young demon's words, Ji Tianqing frowned slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The Heaven Barbaric Demonic Commander. It's actually him who's personally overseeing the arena competition. He was familiar with the Heaven Barbaric Demonic Commander. He even hated him to the core. When he married Yunyao and brought Yunyao back to Middle State City, the Heaven Barbaric Demonic Commander had followed the Demon King to kidnap Yunyao. When he thought of the past, his heart was filled with anger and killing intent. At the same time, he was worried about one thing. The Heaven Barbaric Demonic Commander's strength has reached LV6 of the soul refining stage. He's familiar with me. If he recognizes the aura of my spiritual soul during the arena competition, the consequences will be unimaginable. Just as he was worrying about this matter, a young man from the demon clan raised his glass and said with a smile, I heard from the grapevine that there are at least 400 to 500 people who came to White Mountain City to participate in the arena tournament. Everyone wants to become the personal guard of Her Highness the Saintess. There were also many people who came for the Saintess. They wanted to catch a glimpse of her beauty. It's a pity that only 100 people can do it. Most of them will be eliminated. I'm afraid they won't be able to see the Saint Lady for the rest of their lives. A young man from the demon clan at another table whispered, it said that the Saint Lady is not one of us. Those who have seen her said that she is very ugly. She is short and skinny. Her skin is frighteningly white. She always wears a white dress and covers her face with a cloak and a veil. Sigh. Many people don't know about this. They think that the Saint Lady is so beautiful that they want to see her face. How ridiculous and pitiful. Although his voice was not loud, everyone in the hall had the strength of the Origin Core realm. Naturally, they heard him clearly. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly. A strange light flashed in his eyes. He was more certain of his guess. The surrounding crowd also began to whisper to each other. Yes. I've also heard about this. I didn't expect so many people to not know about it. Sigh. I thought the Saint Lady would be a rare beauty. I didn't expect her to be so ugly. Oh my God. I'd rather not hear this news. You've destroyed my beautiful fantasy. You're too despicable. That's strange. Since the Saintess is not a subject of our clan, why did the Demon Emperor confer her the title of Saintess? Skinny, short, and pale. Such an ugly woman. She's even worse than the most ordinary woman in our clan. Even that woman over there is 10 times more beautiful than the Saintess, right? As the demon youth spoke, his eyes scanned the hall and finally landed on Ao Luo. There were dozens of young devils sitting in the main hall of the inn, but Ao Luo was the only woman. The young devil naturally wanted to compare her. Instantly, everyone turned to look at Ao Luo, sizing her up from head to toe and commenting on her. Ao Luo's face immediately turned cold. Her eyes flashed with anger as she glared fiercely at the demon youth. Filled with anger, she slammed the table and stood up. Looking at the people whispering to each other, she angrily scolded, "You bunch of despicable bastards. Shameless and disgusting." Regardless of the Saintess status and appearance, she's still the Saintess conferred by the Demon Emperor. How dare you bastards criticize her? Moreover, The Saintess uses a secret technique every month to send the Saintess spring rain to all the tribes, helping our hundreds of millions of people to be reborn and relieving their pain. Do you know how kind and noble the Saintess is? She's like a reincarnated goddess, the savior of our hundreds of millions of people. But you bunch of hypocritical and disgusting bastards, you've accepted the Saintess grace and been baptized by the Saintess spring water, yet you still criticize her behind her back. Do you have any shame? Aoluo's temper was fiery, and her tone was full of righteous indignation and contempt. Her words were like a heavy hammer that hammered everyone in the hall into a daze. Everyone turned their heads and stared at her in a daze. The hall fell silent, so quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. After a moment, everyone came to their senses. Most of them looked ashamed and hurriedly lowered their heads to drink, not daring to say more. A young man from the Devil clan stood up and walked toward Aoluo with a sneer on his face. This person was the one who said the Saintess was ugly. He was about 30 years old and possessed strength at the 9th level of the Origin Core stage. He walked up to Ji Tianqing and stood next to him. He looked down at Aoluo and sneered. "Little girl, we're just chatting. Why are you so agitated? Who is the Saintess to you? What does she have to do with you? Countless people know the Saintess is ugly, and everyone is talking about it, but the Demon Emperor isn't angry. We're just chatting casually. What right do you have to insult us in public? Apologize to me right now. Otherwise, I won't show you any mercy. I'll make you crawl out of here." As he spoke, the young man from the Devil clan cracked his neck and clenched his fists. His entire body was surging with rage. "You!" Aoluo was furious. Her eyes were burning with fury, and she instinctively wanted to punch him. Big Bear, who was sitting next to her, stood up with a swoosh and rushed in front of her in a flash. "Bastard, you're seeking death!" Big Bear shouted angrily. He swung his fists at the young man from the Devil clan with all his might. "Humph! You overestimate yourself." The young man from the Devil clan snorted disdainfully. Dense black energy surged in his hands as he clenched his fists and smashed them toward Big Bear. Many sharp spikes emerged from his fists, and his fingers turned into sharp black claws, with black fingernails growing out of them. Obviously, this young man from the Devil clan was from the Azura clan. He was best at close combat and had extraordinary strength. Boom! The two people's fists fiercely collided with each other, and a loud muffled sound rang out. The explosive and violent energy spread out in all directions. The blast of energy swept out, shattering the tables and chairs in the surroundings. Everyone fell to the ground. Everyone scrambled to their feet and quickly retreated to the side to watch the show. Big Bear was also sent flying by the young man from the Azura clan. He crashed into the wall, creating a big hole in the dark brown stone wall. Countless pieces of rubble flew out. When Big Bear crawled out of the rubble, he was already panting. Both of his arms were broken and hung limply at his sides. His fists were full of holes and bleeding profusely. Aoluo cried out angrily and worriedly. She also threw her fists at the young man from the Azura clan. However, the young man from the Azura clan sneered contemptuously. He exploded with even more strength and sent Aoluo flying with a punch. Plop! Aoluo crashed into the wall, creating a big hole in it. She fell beside Big Bear and spat out blood. Chapter 1051. The lobby was in a mess. Dozens of young demons retreated to the sides and formed a circle, waiting to watch a good show. The demon race worshipped martial arts, and its people were tough and bloodthirsty. They were not only cruel to outsiders, but also to their own people. Moreover, the demon race had a loose legal system. Killing and robbing were common occurrences. Even in White Mountain City, where the law was relatively strict, private fights were not forbidden. As long as no one died, even the city lord's mansion would not interfere. As for the inn, they would certainly not interfere in this matter. As long as the two sides settled their grudges, someone would compensate the inn for its loss. Big Bear and Ah Luo stood side by side in the corner. Both were injured, and they glared at the young Shura man. The young Shura man was surrounded by black smoke. Black scales and barbs could be vaguely seen on his skin and neck, showing the characteristics of the Shura race. Dozens of spectators stood around, commenting and commenting, occasionally bursting into laughter. However, everyone's eyes fell on the corner, and they looked at Ji Tianqing in confusion and surprise. Because he was sitting between the young Shura man, Big Bear, and Ah Luo. Even though a fierce battle had just taken place beside him, he still sat on the bench without moving. The table, wine jar, and wine bowl in front of him were all intact. Even his expression and movements were the same as before. He was still holding the wine bowl expressionlessly, sipping the wine in the bowl. His expression was indifferent, as if he did not care about anything. Seeing this, the onlookers were surprised and whispered to each other. The young Shura man frowned and squinted at Ji Tianqing. He shouted in a deep voice, "Boy, if you know what's good for you, get out of here." Ah Luo and Big Bear hurriedly winked at Ji Tianqing, indicating that he should not get involved in this mess. But Ji Tianqing ignored them and continued to drink slowly. He said coldly, "I'll give you a chance to live. Break one of your arms and kneel down to apologize. Then, you can get out of here." There was no emotion in his cold voice, but there was also an unquestionable majesty and dominance. Everyone in the hall was stunned. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they stared at Ji Tianqing with burning eyes. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air and muttered in shock. Hiss. Who is this guy? How dare you be so arrogant? So domineering. This guy must be an expert, right? Expert. This guy came in a long time ago. I couldn't tell at all. Could it be that this is a hidden expert? I don't think so. He's probably a guy from a small tribe who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The Shura youth's face darkened. He was so angry that his whole body trembled, and the veins on his forehead bulged. Break one of my arms and kneel down to apologize. With a twisted face, he scolded with a deep voice, "Little bastard, do you know who I am? How dare you be so arrogant?" As he spoke, a thick black fog surged around his body. Black bone wings appeared on his shoulders, and a row of sharp barbs appeared on his spine. This was the racial characteristic of the Shura tribe when they were enraged or when they wanted to kill their enemies with all their might. "Little bastard, I'm going to destroy you first," the Shura youth shouted. He raised his arms, which were covered with sharp barbs, and smashed them toward Ji Tianqing's head with all his might. The power of this attack was enough to create a crater with a radius of 100 meters on the ground. When everyone felt the power of this attack, they were shocked and hurriedly retreated. Ah Luo and De Xiong were also very worried. They quickly shouted for Su Ke to stop. Ji Tianqing's expression did not change. He still looked indifferent. He raised his left hand lightly and punched at the Shura youth. Boom! The fist radiance, which was condensed by blood-red brilliance, hit the Shura youth's arms with a dull thud. Instantly, the Shura youth was sent flying. He slammed into the wall, creating a hole in the thick wall. Countless bricks and stones collapsed and buried him immediately. However, he fell into the rubble. His arms were shattered, and he spat out blood. He struggled a few times but could not get up. A gust of strong wind blew into the hall through the hole, causing everyone to shiver in fear. Of course, it was not the wind and snow that made them feel cold. Everyone stared at Ji Tianqing with awe and fear in their eyes. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. De Xiong and Ah Luo had been sent flying by the Shura youth with a single punch. The Shura clan's close combat ability was so strong that it made one's hair stand on end. When Ji Tianqing punched the Shura youth, everyone was laughing in their hearts. They were laughing at him for overestimating himself. But now, the result made everyone's jaws drop. They could not believe it. At this time, Ji Tianqing stood up slowly and walked toward the Shura youth. Rustle, 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 the sound of footsteps was like a drum, beating everyone's hearts. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Everyone stared at Ji Tianqing. What was he going to do? What would happen to the Shura youth? Ji Tianqing walked to the hole in the wall and stopped in front of the Shura youth. He looked down at the Shura youth with a cold expression. You insulted the saintess. Unforgivable. Originally, you could have left after breaking one of your arms and kneeling down to apologize. But now, you'll have to double the punishment. As soon as he finished speaking, he lifted his right foot and stomped on the Shura youth's left shoulder with the weight of a mountain. Crack! With the crisp sound of bones breaking, the Shura youth's left shoulder was crushed. His left arm was broken. Then, Ji Tianqing raised his foot and stepped on his right shoulder. Crack! The Shura youth's right shoulder was also crushed. His right arm was broken. The heart-wrenching pain made him tremble all over. He screamed in a hoarse voice. Ah! Bastard! You're dead. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. Ji Tianqing glanced at him coldly and said indifferently, You're too noisy. With that, he kicked the Shura youth away. Bam! The Shura youth crashed through the wall and flew more than 30 meters away. He landed on the street outside the inn and fell into the thick snow. He had fainted on the spot. He lay motionless in the snow. He was really dead. In the lobby, Ji Tianqing sat down in the corner with a calm expression. It was as if nothing had happened. That shocking and awe-inspiring scene was as simple as drinking water to him. After sitting down, he glanced at the innkeeper in the crowd and pointed at De Xiong and Ao Luo. Ask them for the inn's compensation. Then, he lowered his head and continued drinking. He looked cool and indifferent. Chapter 1052. After watching the show, many devils quietly left the inn for fear of getting into trouble. In a short while, more than half of the people in the lobby were gone. The remaining devil clan members were all drinking wine in silence. They were talking to each other through voice transmission. They didn't dare to make any noise. The sturdy and honest bear went to discuss the compensation with the innkeeper. Ao Luo stared at Ji Tianqing for a while, hesitated for a moment, then walked up to him and stood still. Brother, thank you for your help just now. She bowed to Ji Tianqing and thanked him sincerely. Ji Tianqing raised his eyelids, glanced at her, and said indifferently, It's nothing. Don't mention it. Ao Luo was stunned for a moment, and then her eyes showed admiration. She said, Brother, you're really noble. You must be a hidden master who doesn't care about fame and fortune, right? Ji Tianqing didn't answer and didn't want to pay attention to her. Anyway, he had gotten the information he wanted, so he didn't want to be entangled with others. He got up and was about to leave. At this time, Bear had finished dealing with the compensation. He hurried to block his way and thanked him with a salute. Brother, thank you for your help. I'm very grateful. Ji Tianqing didn't say anything. He ignored them and walked to the second floor of the inn to rest in his room. At this time, Bear hesitated for a moment and shouted, Brother, please wait. Ji Tianqing stopped and turned to look at him. What's the matter? Bear scratched his head and said hesitantly, Brother, I just heard them talking about the guy whose arms were broken by you. He seems to be the son of a noble in the city. I know you're powerful and won't be afraid of their revenge. But a powerful dragon can't defeat a local snake. If they come to you for revenge, it'll be troublesome. Ji Tianqing understood what he meant. He nodded and turned to walk through the lobby toward the gate. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared in the wind and snow outside the gate. Bear and Ao Luo looked at each other and hurriedly left the inn to find another place to stay. After this incident, they couldn't stay in the inn and could only find a place to hide. The demon race had always been cold and heartless. They would not meddle in other people's business and care about the life and death of others. If Ji Tianqing hadn't saved them, Bear wouldn't have warned Ji Tianqing. In short, in this barren land of suffering, the most worthless thing was life. Ji Tianqing braved the wind and snow to leave the inn. He found an old house in the east of the city and quietly settled down. Just as De Xiong had said, he wasn't afraid of the Shura clan youth's revenge. He just didn't want to cause any more trouble and delay the arena competition. After settling down in the old house, he stayed in his room and meditated in silence. Time passed quietly. Day after day passed. In these 4 days, White Mountain City became more and more lively. Many demon clan youths from different tribes entered White Mountain City. There were also several city guard troops and a group of guards from influential families, constantly searching for Ji Tianqing's whereabouts. Obviously, these people were sent by the Shura clan youth to seek revenge on Ji Tianqing. For days passed in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning of the 5th day, the sky was still gloomy. A bone-chilling wind blew and snow fell like goose feathers. All the people in the city rushed to the square in the center of the city. They gathered around the square, waiting to watch the show. Today was the day of the arena competition. Young geniuses from different tribes would compete in martial arts under the eyes of thousands of people. The last 100 people would be chosen as the Saint's personal guards. Soon, 20 to 30,000 people of the demon clan gathered in the square, which was 1,000 meters in radius. In the center of the square, there was a tall arena with a radius of 100 meters. The arena was made of dark brown rock, surrounded by a circle of stone pillars and fences. 4 ferocious demon god statues stood in the 4 corners. More than 80 elite guards of the city lord's mansion stood motionless around the arena, wearing black armor and holding long spears. No one dared to approach the arena. It didn't take long for the young demons from the various tribes to arrive at the square. About 600 young geniuses were scattered among the crowd. They all looked at the arena with complicated expressions, thinking silently. Snow fell from the sky, and the atmosphere in the arena was cold and somber. Today's arena competition was very fierce. Even though these young demons were the geniuses of their tribes, they could not help but feel nervous and worried in the face of so many strong enemies. In the northwest corner of the square, there was a young demon surrounded by 4 guards. This person's face was injured, and his arms were drooping weakly. His arms were stiff like wooden sticks, and he could not move them at all. He looked around angrily. His sharp eyes swept across the crowd, as if he was searching for something. A guard beside him hurriedly advised, "Young Master Arnold, your body is more important. Go back to the mansion and heal your injuries. You must not participate in today's arena competition. This is the general's order." The young Shura clan youth named Arnold glared at the guard angrily and said in a low voice, "Nonsense. I'm injured like this. How can I participate in the competition? I'm looking for that bastard called Wulong. He dared to break my arms. Today, I must find him and chop him into pieces. Humph. He dares to fight with me. If I can find his name and information from the city guards, I can definitely find him." Another guard in black tried to persuade him in a low voice, "Young Master Arnold, that man injured you. Perhaps he has already escaped from Baishan City." Arnold curled his lips and sneered, "Humph. My father has already informed the city guard commander that guards the city gate. How can that kid escape from the White Mountain City? He can't escape even if he has wings. Moreover, my father has asked the city guard commander to investigate that kid. His name is Wulong, and he comes from the Blood Crystal tribe. He came here to participate in the arena competition. Today, he will definitely show up. I will find him soon." The guard in black whispered, "Young Master Arnold, this is the square in the city. Tens of thousands of people are watching. Don't act rashly. Moreover, if you kill that kid in front of everyone, it will affect the arena competition. Then, there will be no end to it. I heard that the Heaven Barbarian Demon Commander will come personally. You must be patient. Arnold showed a cruel smile and said proudly, "Of course, I know that. Do I need you to remind me? I have already arranged for Mu Ren to take my place in the arena competition. When the time comes, my opponent will be Wu Long. I will wait for a good show. I will watch Mu Ren break all the bones in that kid's body and turn him into a soft-footed worm." The 4 guards heard him and sneered proudly. They hurriedly flattered him. Young Master Arnold is indeed wise. This is a great plan. Mu Ren is the most elite guard commander of the general's house. He is at the 6th level of Sky Origin stage. That kid will die a horrible death. Chapter 1053. When Ji Tianqing arrived at the square in the middle of the city, he kept a low profile and nobody knew about him. He had arrived rather late. 30 to 40,000 demon commoners had already gathered in the plaza. It was so packed that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Most of the hundreds of geniuses from different tribes who were going to participate in the competition had arrived at the square and were waiting in the crowd. After a while, 2 middle-aged demon men, who were well-dressed and powerful, stepped onto the arena in the middle of the square. The leading burly man was wearing a long robe with golden threads and a square crown inlaid with gems. He was holding a 1-meter-long scepter in his hand. When he stepped onto the arena, all the civilians in the square bowed to him and shouted, "Greetings, Governor." The middle-aged man behind the White Mountain City Lord was dressed in dark purple armor and had a white beard. He was tall and strong, with an iron-blooded murderous aura around him. It was obvious that he was an experienced general. The civilians in the square bowed again and shouted, "Greetings, General Galay." Apparently, he was one of the most powerful people in White Mountain City, General Galay of the Demon Army. They were about the same level. One was at Sky Origin Stage LV7, while the other was at Sky Origin Stage LV8. However, they were already the most powerful people in White Mountain City. After the governor and General Galay stepped onto the arena, they stood still in the middle of the arena. The governor said in a loud voice, "Everyone, His Majesty the Demon King is going to select the personal guards for Her Highness the Saintess. Today, the result will be decided in White Mountain City. This is my honor, and also the honor of White Mountain City." In a while, everyone would see more than 600 young geniuses from various tribes battling it out in the arena. Today, we are honored to welcome our 3rd Demon General, Lord Sky Barbarian Demon General. As the governor finished speaking, the tens of thousands of demon civilians in the square burst into cheers and shouts. General Galay stepped forward and gestured for the crowd to be quiet. He said in a loud voice, "Lord Sky Barbarian Demon General will be in charge of today's competition. The governor will be in charge and I will be the supervisor. Now, please welcome the arrival of the Sky Barbarian Demon General." After that, General Golai and the mayor of White Mountain City stood respectfully on the arena. They turned to look towards the north and bowed to pay their respects. The tens of thousands of people in the square also bowed towards the north. Under everyone's gaze, a thick black cloud flew over from the northern sky. The demonic clouds condensed into a huge demonic face. It flew to the edge of the square as fast as lightning and stopped there. Shwa! The devilish cloud transformed into a devilish man with 4 wings and 6 arms. He was over 10 feet tall and had 4 wings and 6 arms. He was tall and sturdy like a bear. There was a single eye on his forehead, making him look extremely ferocious and terrifying. He looked down condescendingly at the tens of thousands of demons in the square. Black mist and demonic chi surged all over his body, exuding a majestic and domineering air. Tens of thousands of demon commoners in the square all looked extremely fanatical as they shouted, "Welcome, Lord Heaven Barbarian Demon General." Ji Tianqing was squeezed into the crowd and was inconspicuous. He looked up at the Sky Barbarian Demon General silently. His face was expressionless and his eyes were gloomy. Dense killing intent surged in his heart. After half a year, the Sky Barbarian Demon General still looked the same as before. His aura was even more vigorous and his strength had increased. Ji Tianqing secretly guessed that the change in strength of the Sky Barbarian Demon General probably had something to do with the baptism of the holy spring water. At this moment, the Sky Barbarian Demon General said in a thunderous voice, "Ben Shui will be personally overseeing the arena competition today. I guarantee that it will be fair. I hope that everyone will perform well and defeat the strong opponent." After saying that, he landed on a tall tower at the edge of the square. The black stone tower that was 200 feet tall was the resting place that the mayor's residence had arranged for the Sky Barbarian Demon General. Sitting in the hall on the top floor of the stone tower, one could clearly see the entire square and everything in it. The Sky Barbarian Demon General flew into the tower and entered the hall on the top floor. There were already dishes and young demon girls in the hall for the Sky Barbarian Demon General to enjoy and play. However, the tens of thousands of people in the square did not know that. They thought that the Sky Barbarian Demon General was overseeing everything in the square from the top of the tower. Everyone's blood was boiling as they discussed excitedly. Their admiration for the Sky Barbarian Demon General was like a surging river. After a long while, the lively and noisy atmosphere finally calmed down. As the host of the arena competition, the mayor of White Mountain City began to announce the rules of the competition. He looked solemn as he said in a solemn and dignified tone, "In this arena competition, the opponents will be decided by drawing lots. The winner will advance and the loser will be eliminated. In the end, the top 100 winners will be selected as the personal guards of the Saintess. During the arena competition, all weapons are allowed, but pets and other external forces are not allowed. Injuries are not prohibited, but no deaths are allowed. When the opponent admits defeat, you must stop attacking immediately. Otherwise, you will be punished by General Galay." With that, the mayor of White Mountain City waved his hand and took out 660 white jade slips, which floated in the air. "General Galay, please draw lots to decide your opponents." General Galay did not hesitate. He waved his hand and shot out hundreds of black lights, which divided the 660 jade slips into 330 pieces. There were 2 jade slips in each piece, which recorded the names and identity information of the 2 young demons. At the same time, they would also become opponents. General Galay handed the 330 jade slips to the mayor of White Mountain City. The mayor of White Mountain City took out a jade slip at random, opened the 2 jade slips, and read out 2 names. "The first round of the competition starts now. The first round, Yuan Shan vs. Yang Jihua." The 2 young demons were obviously stunned when their names were called out. Then, they quickly ran into the arena with anxious hearts. The 2 of them came to the arena and stood 100 feet away from each other. They looked at each other with hostility and strong fighting spirit. The mayor of White Mountain City and General Galay retreated to the corner of the arena, assuming a posture of watching and supervising the battle. Following General Galay's loud shout, "Start!" the 2 youths of the demon clan on the arena immediately unleashed their full power, displaying their secret techniques and launching a fierce attack against each other. Both of them had the strength of the 6th level of the Origin Core stage. Their bodies were surging with black gas and bloody light, and their fighting spirit was soaring. Their bodies turned into afterimages as they shuttled back and forth on the arena, constantly attacking and killing each other. Bang! 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 The sound of collision was endless, and the muffled sound of rumbling echoed in the sky. The tens of thousands of people in the square stared at the arena without blinking. They were dazzled by the scene, and they kept cheering and applauding. Ji Tianqing, on the other hand, stood quietly in the crowd without any expression on his face. Chapter 1054. In less than 15 minutes, the outcome of the battle between the two demon youths was decided. Both of them had suffered heavy injuries. Their bodies were dripping with blood, and they looked miserable. Their strength was also very weak. The defeated demon youth, in particular, had both his legs and one of his arms broken. He was moaning in pain as he lay on the arena. However, no one sympathized with the loser. Everyone was cheering for the winner. After the White Mountain City governor announced the outcome, the winner successfully advanced to the next round. He stepped down from the arena to recuperate. The heavily injured loser gritted his teeth and struggled to get up. He carried a heart full of humiliation and disappointment as he left the arena with a gloomy expression. Then, the White Mountain City governor took out 2 more jade slips and announced 2 more names. The second round began. Another 2 demon youths stepped into the arena and started a fierce battle. This battle took even less time. It only took a short 100 breaths of time to determine the victor. Then, the 3rd round, the 4th round, and the 5th round began. Time passed quietly. The youths of the Devil clan fighting in the arena changed one pair after another. Almost every battle was cruel and bloody. The 2 young demons would try their best and use all kinds of methods to defeat each other. Muffled sounds of collisions and explosions rang out continuously, reverberating in the air above the square. A full 6 hours passed. Ji Tianqing had observed the fight between over 100 pairs of Devil clan young men, and had successfully learned dozens of martial arts moves and secret techniques. He only needed to use the demon power in Oolong's body to perform these moves and secret skills. Then, he could unleash the power of a Sky Origin Realm expert. This was enough for him to defeat all the contestants. After all, only a few of the 600 demon youths had reached the Sky Origin Realm. He did not want to be the first or the top few. He only wanted to be in the top 100 and become the saint's personal guard. If his performance was too outstanding, he would attract the attention of the Heaven Barbarian Demon Commander. Soon, more than 10 pairs of demon youths stepped into the arena and the outcome was decided. Finally, it was Ji Tianqing's turn. The mayor of White Mountain City announced loudly, the 198th match, Oolong vs Hongshan. Along with his voice falling, a burly man that was almost 6 m tall and was as tall as a mountain of flesh walked out of the crowd, and he ascended the arena with extremely heavy footsteps. This person's body was huge and covered with bulging muscles. He looked like a mutated beast. He was bare-chested and only had a loose animal skin skirt around his waist. He carried 2 pitch-black iron hammers on his back. This person was Ji Tianqing's opponent, Hongshan. A young genius that possessed innate divine strength and a strength at the 8th level of the Origin Core stage. He walked to the ring and stood still. He took off the 2 millstone hammers from his back and looked around for his opponent with his blood-red eyes. Ji Tianqing walked through the crowd expressionlessly and stepped onto the ring indifferently. When he stood opposite Hongshan, Hongshan suddenly opened his wide mouth, revealing a disdainful sneer. Hee hee. Kid, you're really too small. Grandpa, I can smash you into minced meat with a single strike of my hammer. If you know what's good for you, then obediently admit defeat to Grandpa. The tens of thousands of spectators around the ring roared with laughter and mocked Oolong. As far as everyone was concerned, the outcome was already decided based on the appearance and strength of these 2 people. Everyone could guess that after the 2 of them exchanged more than 10 moves, the Black Dragon would definitely be hammered to the ground by Hongshan and beaten to the point of pissing his pants. However, Ji Tianqing stood on the ring expressionlessly. He did not even have the interest to look at Hongshan, and he remained silent. Ah Luo and De Xiong stood together in the crowd on the square. They were staring at Ji Tianqing's figure and secretly communicating via voice transmission. De Xiong, quickly look. That person really did come. He's also participating in the Saint's personal guard selection. Ah Luo, although that person's strength is very strong, it's still hard to say if he can defeat that big guy. Why do you care about that? Victory or defeat is his business. Whether he can become the Saint's personal guard is his own business. Let's not worry about it. Ah Luo, after all, he saved us. I still hope that he can win and become the Saint's personal guard in the future. We'll have a chance to meet again. In the crowd on the northwest side of the square, young Master Arnold was surrounded by 4 guards. At this moment, young Master Arnold's face was livid. His eyes were spitting fire as he glared at Ji Tianqing on the ring and cursed him angrily. Damned little bastard, this bastard really went into hiding. He only appeared today after hiding for so long. He's dead. In a moment, the blades will crush him into minced meat and let him have a taste of being smashed to pieces. After the competition is over, I'll take him back, let my father extract his soul, and torture him to death. The guard next to him said cautiously, Young Master Arnold, I'm afraid that's not very appropriate. General Gelii is very busy. After the competition is over, he still has to accompany the demon commander. I don't care. Young Master Arnold straightened his neck and shouted angrily, I've lived in White Mountain City for more than 20 years, and no one has ever dared to touch me. He dared to break my arms, so I'll make him suffer a fate worse than death. That day, I went out alone and didn't take you with me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have ended up like this. If the 4 of you dare to talk nonsense again, I'll chop you up and eat you. The 4 guards were so scared that they shrank their necks and kept quiet out of fear, not daring to speak again. At this time, the White Mountain City Lord on the ring shouted loudly and announced the start of the competition. Almost at the same time as this voice sounded, Ji Tianqing, who had been indifferent and motionless, suddenly raised his eyelids. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Swoosh! He suddenly moved. His body turned into a blood-colored stream of light and rushed at Hong Shan as fast as he could. There were no complicated moves or superfluous movements. He just clenched his right hand into a fist, released a dark red bloodlight, and fiercely punched at Hong Shan's chest. The power and speed of this punch had reached the limit of the origin core stage. It was so fast that it was like a flash of red light. Hong Shan, who was as huge as a mountain, did not have time to react or dodge before he was hit by this punch. Bang! With a dull bang, the blood-colored fist suddenly bloomed. Hong Shan, who was nearly 20 feet tall and as big as a house, suddenly twisted and deformed. He flew backward with blood spurting out of his 7 orifices. He rolled more than a dozen times in the air, drew an arc, and sprinkled demon blood all over the sky. Then he fell heavily to the ground 10 feet away. Plop! Hong Shan smashed on the floor of the ring and no longer moved. He fainted on the spot. The competition had just begun, and it was over in just a breath's time. There was no doubt that this was the shortest and most shocking competition of the day. The tens of thousands of demon civilians in the square were all stunned and petrified on the spot as they stared at Ji Tianqing. Chapter 1055. Ah Luo and De Xiong, who were in the crowd, suddenly revealed looks of surprise and disbelief. Too terrifying. Hong Shan was actually sent flying by a single punch. This person's strength is really terrifying. It seems that he will definitely become the personal guard of the Saintess. Both of them were shocked to the point that their heartbeats accelerated and were unable to calm down for a long time. In the crowd in the northwest corner of the square, Arnold also stared in horror, his eyes full of disbelief. A moment later, he came back to his senses and his face turned blue with anger, his eyes surging with rage. Bastard! Has his strength reached the sky origin stage? No, I can't let him enter the top 100 and become the personal guard of the Saintess. I have to tell my father to let Muran go on stage in the next round. I must beat that little bastard on the spot. He muttered anxiously, gnashing his teeth in hatred toward Ji Tianqing. At this time, the White Mountain City Lord loudly announced the result. Ji Tianqing walked down the ring with an indifferent expression amidst the cheers and exclamations of the crowd. Hong Shan, who had fainted on the ground, was also carried down the ring by the guards of the city lord's mansion. Next, the White Mountain City Lord read out the names of the demon youths one after another. 8 hours later, the curtain of night fell. The first round of the arena tournament was finally over. Half of the 660 demon youths successfully advanced, while the other half were eliminated. Although the dark curtain of night shrouded White Mountain City, dozens of torches lit up around the square like lighthouses, illuminating the whole square. The arena tournament continued. The White Mountain City Lord waved his hand and sent out 330 jade slips to General Galay for the second round of drawing lots. General Galay released hundreds of blood lights and quickly divided the more than 300 jade slips into 165 copies, completing the drawing of lots. Then, the White Mountain City Lord announced in a dignified voice, "The second round of the arena tournament begins." The first round, the two demon youths whose names were called stepped onto the ring one after another and began to fight. Ji Tianqing stood quietly in the crowd, silently watching the fight on the ring and observing the moves of the demon youths. In the past month, he had become more and more familiar with the demon race. He also had a more thorough understanding of the demon race's power attribute, the characteristics of their martial arts, and the ways to crack them. The reason why he wanted to steal their techniques was to prepare for the future. Because he was very sure that in the near future, he would have to fight the demon race to the death. The deeper his understanding of the demon race, the greater his chances of winning the decisive battle in the future. Unknowingly, it was already late at night. Within 6 hours, more than 90 pairs of youths from the demon clan fought each other on the stage, and the outcome was decided. At midnight, it was finally Ji Tianqing's turn. The White Mountain City's city lord announced loudly, the 120th match, Oolong vs. Inu. Ji Tianqing immediately walked out of the crowd and stepped onto the stage, standing there. Previously, the scene of him punching Fei Hong Mountain had left a deep impression on countless people, making everyone remember him. Now that he had appeared again, the tens of thousands of people in the square immediately revealed expressions of excitement and anticipation as they whispered to each other. Then, a demon man wearing black armor and a black helmet, carrying a heavy sword on his back, stepped onto the ring. This man was tall and strong, emitting cold murderous intent, like a human-shaped weapon, showing an extremely dangerous aura. Unfortunately, his helmet covered his face, only showing a pair of dark purple eyes. No one could see his face. Tens of thousands of people in the square were all looking at Ji Tianqing, so no one noticed the man in armor named Inu. However, when Ji Tianqing saw Inu enter the arena, he frowned and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Damn it! Which tribe is this young genius from? Has he reached Sky Origin Stage Level 6? That's impossible. Among the hundreds of young demons in the competition, the most powerful ones are only at Sky Origin Stage Level 1 or Level 2. A demon at Sky Origin Stage Level 6 is powerful enough to be a king in a small tribe, and a demon general in a battlefield. There must be something wrong with this guy. And you had used some kind of secret treasure to hide his cultivation level, so that normal Sky Origin Stage cultivators couldn't see through him. However, he couldn't hide from Ji Tianqing's soul detection. Ji Tianqing realized something was wrong, so he stared at Anu vigilantly, thinking about how to deal with him. At this moment, Anu walked to 30 meters away from him and looked at him coldly. He sent a message to him, "Boy, your death is coming. I will crush all the bones in your body in front of everyone and turn you into a limp worm. I will let you have a taste of living a life worse than death." Ji Tianqing frowned and sent a message to Anu, "You know me? Do we have a grudge against each other?" A cruel and mocking sneer appeared in Anu's eyes as he sent a voice transmission, "Ha ha ha. You'll understand once you climb down from the arena. You are just a bastard from a small tribe. How dare you behave so atrociously in White Mountain City? You are courting death. You have offended someone you shouldn't have. You should wash your neck and wait for your death. Hearing Yin Yu's words, Ji Tianqing finally understood and confirmed his guess. I see. This Yin Yu is really an expert in disguise. He must be here to avenge that young Shura clan man. Thinking of this, a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. At this moment, the governor of White Mountain City said loudly, "The battle begins now, wait." Ji Tianqing did not attack. He raised his right hand and shouted, interrupting the White Mountain City lord's words. Suddenly, the governor of White Mountain City, General Go Lai, and Yin Yu looked at him coldly. The tens of thousands of people in the square also quieted down and looked at him in confusion. Ji Tianqing pointed at Yin Yu and said expressionlessly, "Governor, General, there is something wrong with Yin Yu. He is not one of the young geniuses who are participating in the battle. He chose to tell the truth in front of everyone and expose Yin Yu's identity." However, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by General Gelei. "Shut up!" General Go Lai shouted in a dignified tone. He released a powerful aura and suppressed Ji Tianqing. All the participants in this time's arena competition are young geniuses from various tribes, and they have the documents and tokens of their respective tribes. Furthermore, this general and the city lord have also carefully screened them. Blunder. You dare to question your opponent's identity. You are challenging the dignity of the governor and me. The governor of White Mountain City also stared at him coldly and shouted, "Blunder. If you're scared, then admit defeat and surrender now. Don't spoil the competition. The Heaven Barbaric Demon General is supervising the battle. If you continue to pester me, I will punish you." When Ji Tianqing saw the reaction of General Go Lai and the governor of White Mountain City, he immediately understood everything. He sneered in his heart. He. These two obviously know that there is something wrong with Yin Yu's identity and want to cover for him. Chapter 1056. Ji Tianqing sneered in his heart, and his killing intent rose. However, since the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander was here, he had to suppress his anger and stop thinking about it. If he made a big deal out of it, it would definitely attract the attention of the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. By then, the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander might see through his identity. He cupped his hands and said to the governor of White Mountain City, "Governor, I have no intention to ruin the competition. Please continue." The governor of White Mountain City and General Go Lai looked at each other and sneered. And you also sneered at Ji Tianqing, ha. Little bastard, you are too naive. The White Mountain City belongs to the general and the governor. A lowly worm like you can only wait to be slaughtered. You will definitely die. Ji Tianqing stared at him expressionlessly, with a touch of pity in his eyes. What a stupid and pitiful guy. In the northwest corner of the square, Arnold was surrounded by 4 bodyguards. He was smiling coldly, his eyebrows dancing in delight. Ha. Screen Blade is here. That guy is obviously scared. He is scared out of his wits. He was truly ignorant to the extreme. He actually wanted to expose Screen Blade's identity in front of everyone. This was simply too laughable. This poor country bumpkin has no idea about my identity and power. The White Mountain City is the territory of the general's mansion. The 4 bodyguards also revealed gloating sneers. They hurriedly flattered Anua and flattered him. On the arena, the governor of White Mountain City and General Go Lai both retreated to the corner. The competition began. Little bastard, be obedient and let me crush you. Yin Yu's face was ferocious as he sneered. His body turned into a stream of black gas and shot towards Ji Tianqing like a shooting star. He didn't use his heavy sword. Instead, he reached out a pair of big palms and slapped toward Ji Tianqing with demonic qi. Ji Tianqing stood still and stared at him coldly. Demonic qi was accumulating inside his body. The governor of White Mountain City and General Go Lai were there, and the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander was on the high tower at the edge of the square. He couldn't use all of his power. He couldn't even use the power of Sky Origin Stage. Otherwise, it would arouse suspicion. He could only use about 30% of his power, which was around Sky Origin Stage Level 3. When Inu rushed in front of him, waving his palms in an unbridled manner, he finally made his move. Blood Dragon Rising. He shouted on purpose. Dark red light gushed out of his palms and formed a 10-meter-long blood dragon, which attacked Inu. Inu didn't put Ji Tianqing's attack in his eyes at all. His figure flashed and dodged the attack. His palms continued to attack Ji Tianqing. However, a strange scene appeared. The blood dragon was so fast that it actually went through Inu's palms and hit Inu's chest. In everyone's opinion, Ji Tianqing's strength was not stronger than Inu's. He had only found Inu's weakness and was able to hit him in one move. With a muffled sound, Inu was covered by the blood light and flew away. He rolled over in the air for a dozen times. Dark purple blood gushed out of his nose and mouth. He landed on the arena about 30 meters away. Luckily, he was wearing the black armor. He was only severely injured by the blood dragon. If he wasn't wearing the armor, he would have been knocked out by the blood dragon. Suddenly, everyone was shocked. The tens of thousands of commoners were all shocked as they looked at Ji Tianqing in disbelief and cried out in surprise. The White Mountain City Lord and General Gu Lai were also stunned. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. They couldn't believe that this was true. Arnold, who was in the crowd, was so excited. But now, the smile on his face froze. After a while, he came to himself. His face turned gloomy. He shouted angrily, "That's impossible." He must have tried his luck and coincidentally hit a flaw in the curtain blade. At this moment, Inu struggled to get up from the arena. Dark purple blood flowed out of his helmet. He was in a sorry state. He was stunned by Ji Tianqing. He stared at Ji Tianqing in disbelief. His eyes were burning with anger. He muttered, "How could he hurt me? I was too careless." He became more cautious. He pulled out the heavy sword on his back. Holding the heavy sword with both hands, he charged at Ji Tianqing again. Demonic Dragon Heaven-Shattering Slash. This time, Inu was smarter. He didn't charge at Ji Tianqing. He raised his heavy sword from 30 meters away and slashed out a huge black sword. Ong! The overwhelming demonic chi condensed into a 30-meter-long demonic dragon. It carried an incomparably violent power as it smashed towards Ji Tianqing's head. Suddenly, the demonic chi in the arena surged. Black fog filled the sky and a violent hurricane was formed. Ji Tianqing was already prepared, and he also took out a pitch-black heavy sword. This was an ordinary Heaven Origin Stage sword. It was a standard demonic weapon that he had prepared in advance. When the demonic dragon Heaven-Shattering Slash came, he held the scabbard in his left hand and the hilt in his right hand. He pulled out the demonic sword with a clang. Without a doubt, it was the sword drawing style. Whoosh! When the demonic sword was pulled out of the scabbard, a 30-meter-long dark red light streaked across the sky like a lightning bolt. It tore apart the black fog that covered the sky. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, the incomparably sharp and fierce blood-red sword light slashed diagonally from the bottom towards Mo Long and Inu. An unbelievable scene appeared. The blood-red sword light avoided the demonic dragon Heaven-Shattering Slash at an extremely tricky angle and slashed at Inu with lightning speed. Crack! A crisp cracking sound was heard. Inu's armor shattered on the spot. His legs were also cut off by the blood-red sword light. Dark purple demonic blood splattered everywhere. His body was cut in half on the spot. His upper body was intact, but his legs were cut off. Blood splattered everywhere, and he fell heavily on the arena. At this moment, the demonic dragon heaven-shattering slashed down and enveloped Ji Tianqing's figure. Boom! Amidst a deafening boom, the 30-meter-long demonic dragon crashed into the ground, causing the entire arena to tremble. Monstrous black fog rose into the air and swept in all directions, filling the entire arena. The tens of thousands of demonic clan people in the square all stared at the arena in shock. They even forgot to exclaim and discuss. Everyone understood that such an earth-shattering movement could not be caused by a primal core expert. Both Oolong and Anyu in the arena were obviously Heaven Origin stage experts. However, who won and who lost in this battle? Anyu's legs were cut off. Although he was still alive, he had lost his ability to fight and was reduced to a useless person. What about Oolong? Did the demonic dragon heaven-shattering slash kill him? This question appeared in the hearts of tens of thousands of people. They waited anxiously and expectantly for the result. Chapter 1057. After a long time, the demonic fog and black chi on the stage finally dispersed. Everyone looked through the night sky and finally saw the scene on the stage. Under the light of the fire, everyone could clearly see that Anyu was lying on the stage with only half of his body left. He was lying in a pool of blood with his heavy sword beside him. His body was twitching and he was screaming in pain. There was a big gully on the ground about 30 meters away from him. There were a lot of broken stones on the ground. Ji Tianqing, who was wearing a black leather armor, was standing in the middle of the stage. He was holding the black demonic sword with both hands. He was also injured. The leather armor on his body was cracked. There were wounds on his chest and arms. Dark purple demonic blood kept flowing out and soaked his hair. Of course, he was only slightly injured. His body was intact and he still had the strength to fight. In fact, he was injured on purpose so that he wouldn't attract too much attention and suspicion. If he didn't want to be injured, Anyu, who was at Sky Origin Stage Level 6, wouldn't be able to hurt him at all. Even so, the tens of thousands of people in the square were still shocked to the point of incoherence. They let out earth-shattering cheers and shouts. Wow! This is unbelievable. Oolong actually won. This is too scary. He is actually so powerful. This battle is definitely going to be the most exciting battle of the night. He actually blocked the demonic dragon sky-shattering slash with such terrifying power and only got slightly injured. Oh my god! I can't believe my eyes. Countless people of the demon clan were waving their arms excitedly. They were shouting and yelling to express the shock and astonishment in their hearts. In the corner of the stage, the White Mountain City Master and General Gu Lai's faces became very ugly. Their eyes were as cold as ice. They stared at Ji Tianqing's figure and discussed secretly. General Gu Lai, there is definitely something wrong with this Oolong. How could there be such a powerful young genius in the Blood Crystal tribe? General Gu Lai's eyes were gloomy. He said coldly, Master, of course I know there is something wrong with this person. I am very clear about Mu Ren's strength. This Oolong is only at Sky Origin Stage Level 3, but he can defeat Mu Ren. This is simply a miracle. I've lost a trusted subordinate, so I'll definitely pay him back tenfold. City Lord, Oolong is dead for sure. I will definitely take his dog life and tear him into 1,000 pieces. The mayor of White Mountain City hurriedly said, General Gelii, please calm down. You must stay calm. Right now, it was the arena competition. The entire city was watching. Moreover, the demon marshal was also on the tower. This matter cannot be blown out of proportion, otherwise Muren's identity will be exposed. If Lord Demon General investigates this matter, none of us will be able to bear the responsibility. General Galen nodded and transmitted his voice, Sir City Lord, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I'll let this little bastard live for a while longer. I'll deal with him properly after the combat arena competition ends. After the two finished their discussion, the mayor of White Mountain City stepped into the ring and announced loudly, "Wulong wins this round." After he announced the results, the tens of thousands of people in the square became even noisier. Ji Tianqing glanced at Yu with a mocking look and walked down the stage. Yu was angry and in pain. He gnashed his teeth in anger and his eyes almost spat fire. His legs were broken and he couldn't walk on his own. He could only be carried down the stage by the guards of the mayor's mansion. In the northwest corner of the square, Arnold, who was surrounded by 4 guards, was dumbfounded on the spot as if he was petrified. He looked at the stage in a daze and muttered with a dull look, "No. This is impossible. How could that little bastard defeat Murin? There's a problem. He must die, he must die. No matter what, I will tear him into 1,000 pieces and grind his bones to ashes." Arnold was so angry that he almost went berserk. He was so angry that his eyes were bloodshot and he almost lost his mind. The arena competition continued. 2 hours later, the second round of the competition ended. 165 young demons were eliminated. Including Ji Tianqing, the other 165 successfully advanced to the third round. The mayor of White Mountain City took out 165 jade slips and gave them to General Gelii to draw lots. Among them, 164 people had to fight each other in pairs to determine the victor. The 82 people who won would become the Saint Girl's personal guards. There was only one lucky person who didn't need to participate in the competition and directly advanced to become the Saint Girl's personal guard. This round of competition continued for an entire 6 hours. Ji Tianqing's opponent was a young demon at the 9th level of the Origin Core stage. This young demon was shocked by his performance earlier and was extremely reverent and afraid of him. The two of them had only exchanged one move when Ji Tianqing blasted him flying and heavily injured him. The third round of the competition ended early the next morning. 82 people including Ji Tianqing, the lucky person, a total of 83 people successfully became the Saint Girl's personal guards. When the mayor of White Mountain City announced the results, the square was bustling with noise and cheers. However, the competition wasn't over yet. There were 100 spots for the Saint Girl's personal guards. Currently, there were 83 people who had become the personal guards, and there were still 17 people missing. These 17 people would be selected from the 82 people who had lost. The 82 people who had been defeated would continue to fight until the final 17 people would emerge victorious. However, this had nothing to do with Ji Tianqing and the others. He and the other 82 people temporarily left the square in the middle of the city. They were arranged to stay in a 3-story palace made of black stone in the city governor's estate. Everyone was given a room. After they entered the room, they circulated their energy to heal their injuries and recover their strength. After all, these young demons had gone through a few rounds of the arena competition. They were all injured and weak. Ji Tianqing meditated in his room for 6 hours before he healed his injuries and recovered his strength. At noon, another 17 young demons entered the palace and were arranged to stay by the guards of the city governor's estate. The 100 Saint Girls' personal guards were finally gathered. A commander of the city governor's estate came to the palace and announced a piece of news to everyone. Today, everyone would stay in the palace temporarily to recuperate. Early the next morning, everyone would leave White Mountain City with the heavenly barbaric demon commander and head to the heavenly devil palace in the hinterland of the northern desert. When the young demons heard the news, they were overjoyed. They were filled with excitement and anticipation. Ji Tianqing was also filled with anticipation. He thought to himself, "This is great. I will be able to meet the Saint Girl soon and prove her identity." Yao Yao, are you really the Saint Girl of the demons? A day passed quickly. The arena competition had ended. The square in the middle of the city was empty. However, the entire White Mountain City was still immersed in jubilation and noise. The demons on the streets were still talking about the competition. When night fell, Ji Tianqing was meditating in his room. Suddenly, a commander of the city governor's estate knocked on the door and ordered expressionlessly, "Oolong, come with me." Ji Tianqing frowned and looked at him in confusion. "Why are you looking for me?" The guard commander said indifferently, "Don't ask too much. I'm just following orders. Follow me." Seeing his reaction, Ji Tianqing vaguely guessed something. He didn't ask any more questions and followed the commander out of the palace. It was dark outside. The city governor's estate was singing and dancing. The city governor of White Mountain City was entertaining the heavenly barbaric demon commander. However, the commander took him out of the city governor's estate. They chose a path with no one around and left the city governor's estate quickly. An hour later, the commander took him out of White Mountain City and into a snow mountain outside the city. Ji Tianqing followed the commander silently. He didn't show any expression, but there was a cold smile and killing intent in his eyes. He had already guessed what the commander was going to do and what was going to happen next. Chapter 1058. Under the night sky, the snow mountain was dark and white. The valley with a radius of more than 10 miles was covered with thick snow. The cold wind was howling, and snow was swirling in the air. The guard commander led Ji Tianqing into the valley and stopped in his tracks. Ji Tianqing secretly released his soul strength to observe the surroundings of the valley. Immediately, he found that there was a large array set up in the valley. At this time, the guard commander turned to look at him and sneered. He asked, "Boy, you are really a little bastard from a remote village. Even if you have some strength, you are still an ignorant and cowardly reptile. You didn't even ask why I brought you here. You are really stupid." Ji Tianqing looked at him with a sneer and said with contempt and pity, "I didn't ask because I knew what you were going to do. I was willing to come here with you because, in my eyes, you are already a dead man." "You, what do you mean?" The guard commander's face stiffened and he asked vigilantly. Ji Tianqing sneered and said, "If I'm not wrong, you are not a guard of the city governor's mansion. You are from the general's mansion. The Shura youth whose arms were broken by me should be the young master of the general's mansion. And you, who fought with me today, is also an expert from the general's mansion. Didn't you bring me here to kill me and avenge your young master?" The guard commander's face changed dramatically and he shouted with a fierce look, "You, how do you know all this?" Ji Tianqing's face was filled with disdain, but he didn't answer. At this time, there was a burst of applause 100 steps behind them. Clap, clap, clap. Ji Tianqing turned around and saw that on the empty snowy ground, 2 demon clan men had appeared out of nowhere. The leader was wearing a dark purple armor and a scarlet cloak. He was tall and sturdy. He was General Gulai. The man standing beside him was the Shura youth, General Gulai's son, Arnold. General Geli walked over and clapped his hands. He sneered and said, "Oolong, your intelligence has surprised me. I really didn't expect that you would be able to guess the truth of the matter in such a short time with just a few clues. Unfortunately, in front of absolute strength, no matter how smart you are, it's useless." General Geli seemed to have a well-thought-out plan. He brought Arnold into the valley and stood 100 steps away from Ji Tianqing. He showed his true colors as a powerhouse and sneered in a dignified and domineering manner. "Oolong, even if you have some strength, you are too ignorant. You shouldn't have shown your prowess in White Mountain City, and you shouldn't have provoked my son and broken his arms. I am merciful and will give you a chance. As long as you kneel down and apologize to my son and satisfy him, I will give you a quick death." Ji Tianqing was not in a hurry to make a move. He raised his eyebrows and sneered, "What is a quick death?" General Geli grinned and said in a cold tone, "I will crush all your bones and dig out your heart to go with wine. This is a quick and painful death. It is a quick death. Ha ha ha. General Geli is really merciful." Ji Tianqing raised his head and laughed. His voice was cold and full of murderous intent. Arnold had been staring at him with hatred. When he saw his reaction, he cursed furiously, "Little bastard, you are about to die and you still dare to be so arrogant. I don't agree. I will never let you have a quick death. I will cut off your flesh piece by piece and dig out your internal organs and eyes. I will dig out something to go with wine every day." Ji Tianqing glanced at General Gelei and Arnold coldly and suddenly sighed. Alas, the lowly and barbaric demon clan is so cruel and bloodthirsty. They are doomed to die. General Gelei, Arnold, and the leader of the guards all frowned. Their faces were full of doubts and astonishment. "What? Little bastard, what do you mean?" Ji Tianqing ignored them and pulled out the broken sword burial of heaven like a bolt of lightning. Clang! The sword was unsheathed. Swoosh! A ghastly cold light flashed and slashed towards the leader of the guards closest to him. At that instant, the ghastly cold and dazzling sword light tore through the night and illuminated the gloomy snow ground. The divine sword was unsheathed, peerlessly sharp. No one could block it. Anyone who touched it would die. The 9th level Origin Core stage leader of the guards didn't even have time to react before his neck was slashed off by the sword light. The astonishment on his face hadn't dissipated when a bloody mark appeared on his neck and dark purple devil blood gushed out. Then, the bloody mark gradually expanded. His head slowly slid down and fell onto the soft snow ground. His corpse was still standing. A scorching arrow of blood sprayed out from his neck and sprinkled onto the snow ground. It was dark red and dazzling. After 2 breaths of time, the leader's corpse slowly fell to the ground. The big head's eyes were still wide open. He died with his eyes wide open. General Golai and Atnoa were instantly stunned. Their eyes were wide open in shock. "You, bastard! I'll kill you!" General Golai was instantly furious. He hurriedly waved his hand and shot out a black gas that covered the sky and scattered it around the valley. Swoosh! The formation buried in the valley was activated. The edge of the valley lit up with a black mist that shot into the sky. It immediately condensed into a sky curtain with a radius of more than 10 miles. The pitch-black sky curtain enveloped the entire valley and separated Ji Tianqing's group from the outside world. No matter what happened in the valley, even if the sky fell and the earth cracked, it wouldn't alarm the outside world. The reason General Golai did this was because he had to consider the reaction of the people in the city and the Heaven Barbaric Devil Marshal's perception. He wanted to secretly avenge his son and couldn't let this matter spread out. Otherwise, it would damage his reputation. However, he didn't expect that this was exactly what Ji Tianqing wanted. Black gas surged all over his body. His body immediately changed. Black scales appeared on his skin, azure wings sprouted from his shoulders, and rows of sharp spikes grew from his back. In the blink of an eye, General Golai showed the characteristics of the Azura tribe. His face became ferocious and his aura was cold and terrifying. He was like a pitch-black Azura. His entire body was surging with the aura of death and slaughter. He roared and pounced on Ji Tianqing. Noah quickly hid at the edge of the valley and shouted excitedly, "Father, kill him. Tear him into pieces and let him die without a burial place." Ji Tianqing glanced at him with a pitiful look, then sneered mockingly. Then, he ignored Noah. His body turned into a ball of blood light and rushed toward General Golai as fast as lightning. He directly attacked him. Demonic flame cut. He held the broken sword with both hands and used a secret technique of the Devil Dao. He violently slashed out a giant blood light blade that was 50 meters long toward General Golai's head. General Golai felt the power of the giant blood light blade. His face changed abruptly, revealing a look of horror. You actually hid your strength in the arena? You're not at Sky Origin Stage Level 3, but Sky Origin Stage Level 8. Although he was shocked, he had rich battle experience and reacted quickly. He quickly waved his pair of black claws and released more than 200 black light blades, forming a sword net to protect himself. Chapter 1059. Boom! The huge bloody blade and the sword net made of sword lights crashed into each other, making a huge sound. The result was obvious. General Galei's Shura sword rain was smashed into pieces. He was hit by the huge bloody blade. He screamed and flew backward, smashing into the snow 100 meters away. The raging sword lights and the blast wave burst out in the valley. Suddenly, the snow within 1,000 meters was smashed into pieces. The snow mixed with the mud and splashed everywhere. The entire valley was shaking, and the ground cracked open. General Galei struggled to stand up. He flew up to the night sky and looked down at Ji Tianqing. His red cloak had been torn into pieces. His face was covered in blood. His hair was disheveled. He was in a mess. Arnold was hiding at the edge of the valley. When he saw his father get hurt, he was furious. He looked at Ji Tianqing with hatred and fear in his eyes. Ji Tianqing was safe and sound. He condensed a pair of bloody wings and flew up to the night sky. He looked at General Galei face to face. General Galei, I have something to say to you too. The power and strength that you are so proud of is nothing in front of me. I am someone you can't mess with in your next life. So, you and your father are both going to die here tonight. Arnold was hiding in the corner of the valley. He was so angry and humiliated that he was shaking. He was shouting and cursing crazily. However, Ji Tianqing didn't care about him at all. He just ignored him. General Galei stood in the night sky, fixing his eyes on Ji Tianqing. With a deep and hoarse voice, he yelled, "Stupid dragon! Who the hell are you? You are not a young genius of the Blood Crystal tribe. You are at least at the 9th level of the Sky Origin stage. You are even stronger than the chieftain. Tell me. Who the hell are you? What is your plan?" Ji Tianqing sneered and said with a sneer, "Of course I am not a genius of the Blood Crystal tribe. It doesn't deserve it. As for my plan, you are not qualified to know." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure flashed and pounced on General Galei. Sword drawing style. He brazenly brandished the broken sword and slashed diagonally from bottom to top, drawing out a shocking sword light that was 100 meters long, slashing toward General Galei. No! General Galei was horrified. He opened his eyes wide and let out a mournful cry. He desperately released the black fog and devil chi, and even used the power of the valley's grand formation to form a shield to protect himself. However, it was all in vain. Boom! The shocking sword light slashed the black shield, instantly shattering it into pieces. General Galei was also cut into two by the sword light, and his demonic blood splattered everywhere. The sword light cut his body from his left shoulder to his right abdomen into two halves. Black demon blood, mixed with his internal organs, gushed out and sprinkled down from the night sky. The two halves of the body flew back 100 meters before falling from the sky and landing on the ground powerlessly. Plop! Two large craters were formed on the ground, and mud and snow were splashed all over the place. In the blink of an eye, the ground was dyed black by the demonic blood. The two halves of General Galei's body lay on the ground, still twitching. He was not dead yet, and blood was still flowing out of his nose and mouth. His eyes were still opening and closing, and a low and hoarse voice came from his mouth. "No. You can't kill me. I'm a demon general of White Mountain City. If you kill me, the Heaven Barbarian Demon Marshal will definitely investigate, and you will die too." Ji Tianqing put away the broken sword and descended from the sky, landing beside General Galei. He looked down at General Galei and said with an expressionless face, "Only a few people know about what happened tonight. If all of you die, who can tell the truth? Moreover, even if the White Mountain City governor suspects me, who will believe that I killed you?" General Gelii stared at him with his eyes wide open, and his eyes were filled with despair and anger. No. With all of his strength, he roared furiously. However, his life force was quickly draining away, and his eyes gradually dimmed. After this roar, he finally breathed his last and died completely. However, until he died, his eyes were still wide open, and he died with a grievance. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a red fire, which enveloped General Gelii's body. The raging fire rose and burned the body into ashes in the blink of an eye. The ashes were blown into the night sky by the strong wind and disappeared. Then, Ji Tianqing picked up General Gelii's heavy sword and turned to look at Arnold, who was at the edge of the valley. Arnold had seen his father killed with his own eyes, and he was scared out of his wits. He could not accept this result, and he retreated in a panic, trying to escape from the valley. However, the entire valley was sealed by the dark sky. This formation was set up by General Gelii, and he could not break it, and there was no way to escape. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of him with the black heavy sword. He trembled in fear, and his eyes widened in fear and despair. No! No! Don't kill me! His legs gave way, and he fell to the ground, rolling and crawling backward. Ji Tianqing approached him step by step and looked at him expressionlessly. He said in a cold voice, "Boy, your arrogance have brought you to this end. Accept your death obediently, and be buried with your father." As soon as he finished speaking, he held the black heavy sword and stabbed it toward Arnold's head. Arnold was scared out of his wits. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Ji Tianqing frantically, begging for mercy. "Big brother. Senior. No, no, no. Father, I'm calling you father. Please don't kill me, and spare my lowly life. My father is dead, and from now on, you're my father. Please let me go." Arnold kowtowed like he was pounding garlic, and the ground made loud banging sounds. However, Ji Tianqing shook his head expressionlessly. "Even if you call me grandfather, it's useless, let alone father. Moreover, you don't deserve to be my descendant." As soon as he finished speaking, he stabbed the heavy sword hard, and it pierced through Arnold's head. Arnold's begging stopped abruptly, and his body fell limply on the snow, completely dead. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a red fire, burning Arnold's body into ashes and scattering them in the night sky. Everything was over. Silence returned to the valley, as if nothing had happened. General Gelii, the guard commander, and Arnold had all been destroyed by Ji Tianqing. Not even a strand of hair was left. In the valley, there was only a blank, dark brown ground, and some pits and cracks. However, Ji Tianqing had turned off the defensive formation of the valley. Heavy snow fell from the sky, and soon the blank area was submerged. Before long, the valley would be covered with thick snow, and all traces of the fight would be covered. Ji Tianqing flew into the night sky and quickly left the valley. An hour later, he quietly returned to White Mountain City and entered the residence of the city lord. Chapter 1060. The night passed quickly. It was peaceful in White Mountain City. The city governor's estate was bustling with noise and excitement. Accompanied by the White Mountain City Lord, the heaven barbaric demonic marshal ate and drank for an entire night before leaving at dawn. He left White Mountain City alone and rushed back to the Heavenly Devil Palace to report the news. The 100 guards, including Ji Tianqing, left White Mountain City with the 2 Guardian Commanders and rushed to the Heavenly Devil Palace in the north. The 2 Guardian Commanders were brought by the Heaven Barbaric Devil Marshal. They were at the Heavenly Origin stage. They were the Guardian Commanders of the Heavenly Devil Palace. Their status was noble. Even the White Mountain City Governor was respectful to them. The group of people left White Mountain City and headed north against the wind and snow. The 2 Guardian Commanders walked in the front while the 100 guards followed closely behind them. Everyone hurried on their way in silence, sprinting madly on the snowy plains. There were a few Heavenly Origin stage powerhouses in the guards who could fly. However, the other 90 guards were at the 8th or 9th level of the Origin core stage and could not fly. Therefore, they could only travel on foot, crossing over mountains and ridges. With Ji Tianqing's flying speed, they could reach the Heavenly Devil Palace in a few days. However, the guards were too slow. It would take them more than 10 days to reach the Heavenly Devil Palace. That was why the Heaven Barbaric Devil Marshal left first and did not travel with the guards. Soon, 8 days passed. They crossed countless ice fields, mountains, and many devil clans. They were advancing toward the Heavenly Devil Palace. The peaceful White Mountain City finally had a commotion. After 8 days, General Gulai and young Master Anoa did not appear. It was as though they had vanished into thin air. The people in the general's estate began to panic. They searched everywhere for General Gulai and his son. 10 days later, they searched the entire general's estate and White Mountain City, but they could not find General Gulai and Anoa. The city governor's estate was alerted. When the White Mountain City governor learned that General Gulai and Anoa were missing, he quickly sent out a large group of guards to search for them. After 12 days, the White Mountain City governor gathered all the information and clues and finally came to a conclusion. General Gulai and Anoa might have been killed. This was a huge matter that shook White Mountain City. General Gulai was the demon general who guarded White Mountain City. His status was as high as that of the White Mountain City Lord. In order not to leak the news and cause panic among the commoners, the White Mountain City Lord could only control the spread of the news and investigate the matter intensively. However, no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't find out the cause of General Gray and Arnold's death. He only found one useful clue, which was that the valley in the snowy mountain outside the city was the burial place of General Gray and his son. However, he still could not find out who the murderer of General Gelei and his son was. On the 16th night, he suddenly remembered something very important. He remembered that during the arena competition, General Gulai had said that he would kill the Blood Crystal Tribe's Oolong with his own hands after the competition to avenge Arnold. The White Mountain City Lord did not know whether General Gelei had made a mistake or not. He only knew that Oolong had left Baishan City safely with the guards. However, General Gelei and his son had disappeared into thin air. No one knew who had killed them. Thinking of this, the mayor of White Mountain City began to suspect Oolong. He did not believe that Oolong had the ability to kill General Gelei. However, he had enough reasons to believe that there was something wrong with Oolong's identity. The mayor of White Mountain City hesitated. After thinking for a whole day, he made up his mind to report this matter to the Sky Barbaric Demon General. He wrote the whole story and all the clues in a letter. Then, he sent 2 of his trusted guards to the Heavenly Devil Palace to find the Sky Barbaric Demon General with this letter. At the same time, Ji Tianqing and his guards had traveled for 18 days and finally arrived at the hinterland of the northern desert, the nest of the Demon Emperor. In the evening, the sky was dark and gloomy. The 2 guard commanders led the 100 guards over a large snowy mountain and arrived at a vast ice field. Ji Tianqing looked ahead and saw a giant ice mountain that was 10,000 meters tall standing on the ice field 100 miles away. The iceberg stood alone on the ice field, surrounded by a wide, dark red river. Even though Ji Tianqing was hundreds of kilometers away, he could still smell the thick scent of blood emanating from the dark red river. He knew that the dark red river was the sacred river of the demon race. And that ice mountain that was 10,000 meters tall was the demon race's holy mountain. The nest of the demon emperor, the legendary Heavenly Devil Palace, stood on the peak of the iceberg. The guards slowed down their pace and walked solemnly across the ice field toward the giant iceberg as if they were on a pilgrimage. An hour later, they arrived at the Blood River and stopped. The blood-red river that was flowing slowly was constantly bubbling with blood-red bubbles and blood mist. It was a very strange sight. Ji Tianqing looked at the iceberg in front of him and observed the surroundings. Ever since he stepped into the ice field, he had been observing the terrain in preparation for his escape. Over 100 personal guards knelt down on the icy plains beside the Blood River, kowtowing and praying to the holy mountain while muttering incantations. Not long after, a group of demon race guards in black armor walked out from the foot of the iceberg on the other side of the Blood River. More than 20 guards came to the other side of the Blood River and saluted the 2 guard commanders across the Blood River that was more than 100 feet wide. "Welcome back, Commander." The 2 guard commanders nodded slightly and ordered, "Open the bridge of life and death." The guards immediately cupped their hands and walked toward an ice room on the riverbank. The room was completely made of ice and there were several large formations set up inside. The guards worked together to open a large formation. A dark red light immediately lit up above the Blood River and formed a blood bridge more than 100 feet long. This blood bridge formed by the formation was the so-called Bridge of Life and Death, connecting the 2 sides of the Blood River. The Blood River was the natural barrier in defense of the Heavenly Devil Palace and contained a mysterious power. No matter if it was a Yuan Dan stage expert or a Heavenly Origin stage expert, if they wanted to cross the Blood River or fly over it, they would be swallowed by the Blood River and corroded into dark red blood water. Ji Tianqing had read in the history books that in ancient times, there was an army of humans and demons that attacked the Heavenly Devil Palace. Tens of thousands of experts tried to cross the Blood River and attack the iceberg, but they were all swallowed by the Blood River and turned into blood water that flowed to this day. He remembered this point and secretly observed the formation in the ice room, trying to figure out how to open the Bridge of Life and Death. A moment later, the 2 guard commanders led the guards and stepped onto the Bridge of Life and Death, crossing the Blood River and arriving at the foot of the iceberg. They were about to ascend the iceberg. The Ice Crystal Palace at the peak of the iceberg was the Heavenly Devil Palace. Chapter 1061. Ji Tianqing followed the guards and slowly climbed up the ice mountain. On the enormous iceberg 10,000 meters tall, a narrow staircase of ice was dug from the foot of the mountain to the middle of the mountain. Ji Tianqing followed the guards and climbed up the ice staircase to the middle of the mountain. In the process, he silently observed the defenses on the ice mountain. He found that the interior of the ice mountain had been hollowed out and built into many demon caves. There were dozens of intersecting tunnels at the foot of the mountain and deep underground. There were more than 30 demon caves. Who knew how many demon warriors and elite guards were hiding in those demon caves? All the passages on the ice mountain were heavily guarded and the security was very tight. Originally, Ji Tianqing could use his soul power to secretly investigate the situation inside the ice mountain. However, this was the lair of the Demon Emperor. Not only did the ancient Demon Emperor reside here, but there were also several demon commanders and countless demon experts. Ji Tianqing had to be extremely cautious. He did not dare to use any soul power, nor did he dare to reveal his human aura. He could only observe the ice mountain with his naked eyes and silently analyze and speculate. Once his identity was exposed or he was suspected by the demon commanders and the demon emperor, he would be in great danger. He even had to keep a low profile and not attract the attention of the demon commanders and the demon emperor. An hour later, he followed the guards and climbed over 10,000 steps, passed through 6 checkpoints, and finally reached the middle of the mountain. In front of him was an empty space near a cliff. The ground was formed from light blue ice. There were dozens of ice statues on the empty space. They were all ancient demon gods or ferocious demon beasts. Below the cliff was a straight and steep ice wall that was more than 4,000 meters high. There were rows of icicles hanging from the ice wall like spears. It was a spectacular sight. At the back of the open space, there was a huge ice crystal palace on the side of the ice mountain. This palace was carved out of the ice mountain. It was more than 1,000 feet wide and had 3 floors. The palace gate faced the empty space. There were 8 guards in black armor on both sides of the gate. There were 3 large black words carved on the lintel of the gate. Saintess Palace. The 2 guard commanders led Ji Tianqing and the others to the open space outside the gate. Ji Tianqing looked up at the Holy Maiden Palace with a complicated expression. He muttered to himself, "Holy Maiden, I'll be able to see you soon. Are you my Yao Yao?" At this moment, the middle-aged leader said with a solemn expression, "Everyone, this is the Saintess's palace, the Saintess's palace. From now on, you will be the personal guards of the Saintess. My surname is Hu. You can call me Commander Hu. From now on, I will be your commander and captain. You must abide by the rules of the Saintess Palace. You must not disobey the wishes and orders of the Saintess." Furthermore, the Heavenly Devil Palace was located at the top of the mountain, where the Devil King resided. That is the sacred land and forbidden land of my clan. No one is allowed to approach it for no reason. If they are discovered, they will be executed immediately. In a moment, I will bring you into the Saintess Palace and arrange for you to stay on the first floor of the palace. If you have nothing else to do, you can stay in your rooms and cultivate. Wait for my orders. Do not wander around at will. Commander Hu explained the rules of the Saintess Palace to them in a dignified tone. After that, he led them into the Saintess Palace. The first floor of the palace was the residence of the guards and personal guards. There were more than 100 rooms, all of which were made of ice crystals and were protected by a Tianyuan-level array. After Commander Hu settled them in, he asked them to stay in their rooms and recuperate. He also asked them to memorize the rules of the Saintess Palace. For the past few days, the Saintess had been cultivating in her room on the 3rd floor of the palace. As long as the Saintess did not leave the palace, the personal guards had nothing to do. They could rest in peace. Soon, night fell. In the cold and gloomy Saintess Palace, there was no light at all. Only the moonstone lamps in the passageways were lit. Under the night sky, the Saintess Palace was lit up with specks of silver light. It was extremely quiet and peaceful. Apart from Ji Tianqing, the rest of the 90 or so personal guards had been on the road for 18 days. They were exhausted and weak. When night fell, the personal guards stayed in their rooms. They were either sleeping or meditating to recover. Ji Tianqing was the only one who did not sleep or meditate. He sat on the ice bed, frowning. He was thinking about his next plan. This is the nest of the Demon King. I can't stay here for long. Otherwise, the Demon Commander and the Demon King will find me sooner or later. Besides, I killed General Golai and his son, which may arouse the suspicion of the White Mountain City Governor. Even though I didn't leave any evidence, I have to prevent the White Mountain City Governor from reporting to the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander. So, I can't waste time. I have to find the Saintess as soon as possible and find out who she is. After making up his mind, Ji Tianqing quietly left the room. He walked through the dimly lit passageway and sneaked to the 3rd floor of the palace. However, the Saintess Palace was strictly guarded and had strict rules. The personal guards could only move around on the 1st floor of the palace. They were not even allowed to go to the 2nd floor. Moreover, there were 4 guards guarding the staircase on the 2nd floor of the palace. Each of the guards was at level 2 of Sky Origin Stage. They were as motionless as statues, guarding the entrance of the staircase without moving an inch. Ji Tianqing could not sneak under their eyes, let alone fly to the 3rd floor of the palace. After all, the entire Saintess Palace was protected by a great array. There were many traps and mechanisms. He had no choice but to take out an invisibility charm from his interspatial ring. When he left the Central Plains, Long Yunxiao and Kuan Wu gave him a lot of cultivation resources and treasures. There were not only spiritual stones, Dan beads, magic treasures, but also many mysterious charms. This Tianyuan grade invisibility talisman could hide his body and aura for 15 minutes. A quarter of an hour is enough. Ji Tianqing hid in a corner and cast an invisibility talisman. His entire body immediately turned transparent and disappeared into thin air. He quietly walked over the stairs, walked past the 4 guards, and sneaked to the second floor of the palace. The second floor of the palace was very quiet. There were only over 20 people living there. They were the 2 guards and the maids of the Saintess Palace. Similarly, the staircase leading to the 3rd floor of the palace was also guarded by several elite guards. The 6 guards in black armor were all at Sky Origin Stage Level 4. They stood still at the stairs and kept alert. Ji Tianqing was even more cautious. He tiptoed over the stairs and finally reached the 3rd floor of the palace. There were not many rooms on the 3rd floor of the palace. There were only over a dozen rooms. Most of them were empty. This was where the Saintess lived. She usually lived alone. It was late at night. Over a dozen rooms were as dark as ink. Only the biggest room was lit up. Ji Tianqing knew that the Saintess was in that room. Chapter 1062. Ji Tianqing stood in front of the door carved from ice and silently took a deep breath. He did not know what he would see when he opened the door. Would the holy maiden who had saved millions of demon citizens be his wife, Yunyao? How had Yunyao, who had once hated the demon race the most, become the holy maiden of the demon race? Everything was unknown. Filled with anticipation and apprehension, he slowly reached out and opened the door. Crack, crack, crack. With the soft sound of ice crystals rubbing against each other, the door opened. Bright silver moonlight shone out of the room and illuminated the door. He quietly entered the room and saw a living room in front of him. There was no one in the living room and the furnishings were very simple. There was only a table, a few stools, and a large screen. Of course, these furnishings and furniture were all made from ice crystals. Behind the screen to the left of the living room was a large bedroom. Bright moonlight shone in the bedroom. A woman in a long white dress was sitting cross-legged on a large bed of ice jade. The snow-white dress was spotless and embroidered with stars and a silver moon. There were also exquisite cloud patterns on the collar and cuffs. This was clearly the style of human clothing and was not a style that the demon race could appreciate. The woman looked to be about 20 years old. Her face was pure and beautiful and her skin was as white as jade. Her eyes were very large and her eyelashes were thick and long. Her nose was high and her thin lips were not too big or too small. She was cold and alluring. She was sitting on the frigid ice jade bed and meditating with her eyes closed. She was barefooted. In the eyes of the human race, she seemed to be the masterpiece of the Creator. She was definitely a beauty that could cause the downfall of countries and cities, as noble and holy as a fairy from the 9th heaven. However, she gave off an icy aura of death and a faint layer of bloody light. She had long silver hair that reached her waist and her lips were not pink like normal people's. They were slightly dark purple. This was especially true for her jade-like hands. Her slender fingers were actually covered with sharp black nails. When she heard the soft sound of the door opening, she was immediately awakened and opened her eyes. Under her thick and long eyelashes, there was a pair of dark purple pupils in her clear eyes. Such a noble and holy peerless beauty had lost her holy aura and became somewhat sinister and evil. She was like a witch. Without a doubt, she was the holy maiden of the demon race. She looked coldly at the door and her gaze was blocked by the screen. Who is it? Who dares to barge into this palace? Her thin lips opened and closed as she spat out a cold and dignified sentence in the demon race's language. Ji Tianqing, in his invisible state, passed through the living room and walked around the large screen to arrive at the door. When he heard this, his body shook, and a bright light flashed in his eyes. It's Yao Yao. It's definitely her. Although the holy maiden of the demon race, her voice was still the same voice of the demon race. However, the nature of her voice hadn't changed. Ji Tianqing would never forget it and would never mishear it. He suddenly raised his head to look at the bedroom and saw the silver-haired holy maiden sitting on the ice jade bed. At that moment, his eyes widened and his body stiffened at the door. He actually forgot to hide his aura. The familiar face, the familiar voice, the familiar white dress, and the beautiful figure that was forever engraved in the depths of his mind. Nothing had changed. That's right. The holy maiden of the demon race was the wife that he yearned for day and night. The lover that he cared about the most in his heart, Yun Yao. At that moment, Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with mixed feelings. He revealed a gratified expression and eyes. Since the day Yun Yao was captured by the Demon King, he had never truly smiled or been happy for a single day. He was constantly worried about Yun Yao and her safety. Although Divine Master He Yu and the Master of the Monarch Mansion had analyzed for him that the Demon King had other motives for capturing Yun Yao and would definitely not kill Yun Yao's life would not be in danger. But he was still very worried. He just wanted to enter the northern desert as soon as possible and see Yun Yao as soon as possible. Now, he finally achieved his wish and saw her as he wished. The efforts and worries of the past 10 months, as well as the dangers he endured, were all worth it. In his excitement, Ji Tianqing removed the invisibility charm and revealed himself. He stood at the door and stared at Yun Yao. He said excitedly, "That's great. Yao Yao, I finally found you." As he spoke, he stepped into the bedroom. His eyes were filled with tenderness as he looked at Yun Yao and walked towards her. However, Yun Yao frowned and looked at him coldly. She shouted in a deep voice, "Stop! Who are you? How dare you trespass into my bedroom? Aren't you afraid of being executed?" Ji Tianqing was startled. Only then did he remember that his current appearance was a blunder. He was just about to change out of Black Dragon's physical body and reveal his true body to meet Yun Yao. However, he suddenly noticed that Yun Yao's appearance had changed a lot. Even her temperament and eyes had become very unfamiliar. He immediately calmed down and looked at Yun Yao with concern. He asked in human language, "Yao Yao, don't you remember me? I'm Tianqing, your husband." Yun Yao didn't react to his words. Her expression and eyes showed a trace of confusion. She was startled. Then, she looked angry and shouted coldly, "What are you talking about? Kneel down and admit your guilt. How dare you trespass into my bedroom and disturb my cultivation? You can't escape death." There was no doubt that she was speaking the demon language. She couldn't understand the human language at all. Ji Tianqing was stunned. His heart was filled with surprise and confusion. He couldn't understand it. He had used all his means and methods to come to the Demon Emperor's nest. He finally saw his wife, Yun Yao. However, he didn't expect that even if he met Yun Yao again, they wouldn't know each other. At this moment, his enthusiasm and excitement were extinguished. It was as if he had been doused with ice water. What's going on? Why did Yao Yao become like this? Not only does she not understand the human language, but she also forgot my voice. No, there must be something wrong. He stared at Yun Yao and observed the changes in her appearance and aura. At this moment, Yun Yao was even angrier. She was about to call the guards to arrest him. Ji Tianqing saw that the situation was not good. He didn't dare to make a big deal out of it, so as not to expose his identity. He quickly knelt down on one knee and apologized to Yun Yao. He explained in the demon language, "Your Highness Saintess, I deserve to die. Please calm down. I'm a guard who just arrived today. I didn't know the rules of the Saintess Palace and accidentally trespassed here. I didn't expect to disturb your cultivation." Yun Yao frowned and looked at him with a doubtful look. After a moment of silence, she looked indifferent and said coldly, "Since you're new here and don't know the rules, I'll spare your life for now. You can leave now and go to the guard commander to admit your guilt and receive your punishment." Chapter 1063. Ji Tianqing left Yun Yao's room and quietly left the third floor of the palace. After returning to his residence on the first floor of the palace, he rested in his room, still thinking about what had just happened. He still couldn't believe that Yun Yao couldn't understand the human language and had completely forgotten about him. He recalled Yun Yao's appearance and felt that something was wrong. Yao Yao's black hair had turned silver. Her eyes had also turned dark purple, and her fingers, she looked as if she had been possessed by the devil. But how did she become like this? Could it be that, she wasn't Yao Yao, but looked exactly like Yao Yao? No. How could there be such a similar person in the world? She must be Yao Yao. However, something must have happened to her to become like this. She even forgot about me. He pondered for a long time and finally confirmed that the saintess was Yun Yao. However, he didn't know what had happened to her to become like this and lose her memories. Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with anxiety and worry. He couldn't wait to find Yun Yao and ask her about it. However, he forced himself to calm down. He couldn't act rashly. After all, Yun Yao didn't know him now. He couldn't make a big deal out of it, nor could he expose his identity. Once his identity was exposed or caught the attention of the demon commander and the demon emperor, all his previous efforts would be in vain and his life would be in danger. At that time, not only would he not be able to save Yun Yao, but he would also die in the heavenly devil palace. Therefore, Ji Tianqing suppressed his worries and doubts and silently waited for an opportunity. The night passed quickly. The next day, the sky was still dark and gloomy with dark clouds. The cold wind whistled high in the sky and snow fell continuously, covering the iceberg and the surrounding ice fields. The saintess Yun Yao was still cultivating in the palace. Many of the guards were also resting and recuperating in the rooms on the first floor of the palace. However, in the evening, Commander Hu summoned all the guards and announced a piece of news in public. Everyone, rest well tonight and recharge your energy. Tomorrow morning, Her Highness the Saintess would depart for the brave warrior tribe, which was thousands of miles away, to baptize the tribesmen. This time, Her Highness the Saintess will be accompanied by 50 personal guards. The other 50 will remain in the Saintess Palace to await further orders. After saying this, Commander Hu read out the names of 50 people. These 50 personal guards would accompany the Saintess and escort her to the Yuyong tribe. As for how long he would stay in the Yuyong tribe, no one knew. Ji Tianqing only knew that he was not one of the 50 personal guards accompanying them. He had to stay in the Saintess Palace and wait for orders. After Commander Hu announced the news and left, the guards were in high spirits. The personal guards who were named to escort the Holy Maiden were very excited and proud. They were happy to see the Holy Maiden's true appearance. As for the personal guards who were not named, they felt a little regretful and could only continue to rest in the Saintess Palace. Ji Tianqing remained silent, but he was secretly weighing the pros and cons in his heart. I wonder how many days Yao Yao will take to go to the brave tribe this time. It's a pity that I can't accompany her and have no chance to get close to her. No, I don't have much time. I have to figure out her situation as soon as possible. Otherwise, there will be more changes. Thinking of this, he made up his mind and decided to investigate the situation again tonight. Night fell quickly. Ji Tianqing stayed in his room and meditated for more than 4 hours. Finally, it was midnight. In the early hours of the morning, the Saintess Palace was very quiet. Other than the personal guards who were guarding the important roads, no one was moving around in the palace. He secretly took out an invisibility charm and stuck it on his body. He then cast a spell to activate the charm's power. There are only 3 invisibility charms in total. This is the second one. I hope everything will go well, he prayed silently in his heart. Then, he left the room in his invisible state and sneaked toward the 3rd floor of the palace. With the experience from last night, he walked up 2 flights of stairs with ease. He passed under the eyes of the personal guards and arrived at the 3rd floor of the palace. The 3rd floor of the palace was still very quiet. More than 10 rooms were dark. Only Yun Yao's bedroom was lit. This time, Ji Tianqing didn't push open the door directly. He secretly cast a secret spell. His body turned into an icy blue light. With a whoosh, he passed through the gap in the door and sneaked into the room. He silently landed in the living room and looked around vigilantly. There was still no one in the simple living room. Yun Yao was still sitting on the ice jade bed in the bedroom. She was meditating and cultivating with her eyes closed. Ji Tianqing secretly took out an ancient jade pendant that was strung with a silver bead chain from his space ring and wore it around his neck. Before Yao Yao and I got married, Master gave us a gift called the Lingxi bracelet. Yao Yao and I each have a semicircular jade pendant. When we put it together, it's a complete set. Master once said that as long as we wear the Lingxi bracelet, we can sense each other's aura even if we are thousands of miles away. Moreover, the Lingxi bracelet will engrave our soul memories, recording every little meeting we have together. He reached out and touched the Lingxi bracelet around his neck. He secretly sighed in his heart. Yao Yao, oh Yao Yao, I wonder if you still have it with you. If I take out this Lingxi bracelet, will you still remember me? With this thought in mind, he remained invisible. He quietly went around a wide screen and stepped into Yun Yao's bedroom. Yun Yao was sitting on the ice jade bed with her eyes closed. She was meditating and cultivating. Her aura was restrained, and she was very focused. Obviously, she was at the critical moment of her cultivation. She had completely forgotten everything in the outside world. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing secretly said, "This is a good opportunity." He quickly entered the bedroom and quietly went to Yun Yao's side. He used his divine soul power to check her situation. Of course, he only released his divine soul power at a close distance. It was no more than 3 meters away. It would never alarm anyone except Yun Yao. However, Yun Yao was concentrating on cultivating. She didn't seem to notice it at all. He stared at Yun Yao and observed her appearance. His divine soul power quietly entered her body to check her situation. Soon, he found that Yun Yao's appearance had changed more than just her silver hair and purple eyes. Even her body was quietly growing bigger and taller. Her jade-like white skin was faintly tinged with purple. Although the changes weren't obvious at the moment, as time passed, her body would gradually grow and she would eventually become a demon woman. More importantly, his divine soul power found that Yun Yao's bloodline had turned into dark purple demon blood. The true qi in her body had disappeared, leaving only vast and mighty demon power. Even the soul in her mind had become a mass of chaos. It was full of purple, black, and turbulent demon qi. Chapter 1064. Within 30 seconds, Ji Tianqing figured out Yun Yao's physical condition. Without a doubt, Yun Yao had been demonized from the inside out. Although she hadn't grown taller yet, she was very close to becoming a demon. Ji Tianqing was anxious and confused. He used his soul power to invade her mind and check her soul. He wanted to know what had happened to Yun Yao's soul. How could she lose her memories? However, when his soul power touched Yun Yao's soul, Yun Yao suddenly woke up. Swoosh! She instantly stopped cultivating and opened her eyes. His dark purple eyes flickered with an icy cold light as he stared at Ji Tianqing in front of him. Ji Tianqing froze. He looked at her in the eyes and didn't know what to say. Yun Yao only stared blankly for a moment before she regained her senses. Her eyes were filled with dense anger, flickering with a frightening cold light. "It's you again. You're courting death." She shouted angrily and suddenly raised both of her palms. She activated the dark red blood light and slammed it towards Ji Tianqing's chest. Ji Tianqing subconsciously raised his arms and was about to unleash his power to resist. It was easy for him to deal with Yun Yao, who was at the 4th level of Sky Origin stage. However, just as he raised his arms, they immediately froze and stopped moving. "No." She is Yao Yao, my wife. She just forgot about me temporarily. I can't hurt her. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, Yun Yao's palms slammed into his chest. Bang! With a muffled thud, Ji Tianqing was sent flying backwards by her slap. He fell 10 steps away and crashed into the ice crystal wall. The rhino bracelet he wore around his neck was also broken and fell to the ground. However, Yin Yao's palace was protected by a large array. The dull sound didn't spread out and alert the guards outside. Ji Tianqing's internal organs were injured by her attack. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth. He quickly got up from the ground and looked at Yun Yao with a complicated expression. His heart ached. He asked in a bleak voice, "Yao Yao, don't you remember me at all? I am your husband. I am Tianqing. What have you been through? Why did you become like this?" "Me, Cloud Spirit Palace, the Emperor Palace, your parents, the Sky Pillar Sect, and Master. Don't you remember anyone?" Yin Yao was still expressionless when she heard his human words. She looked at him coldly. "Last night, I gave you a chance. I didn't expect you to dare to come again. You are so stubborn. I won't forgive you." After saying that, she waved her hand and sent out a blood-red light. It flew out of the window and out of the room. She shouted in a dignified voice, "Guards." Several guards guarding the entrance to the 3rd floor of the palace were alarmed. When they heard her shout, they hurriedly rushed over like a gust of wind. Swoosh! 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 In the blink of an eye, several guards in black armor rushed to the door of the bedroom. They held their swords and sabers and looked into the room. When they saw Ji Tianqing in the room, they were filled with anger and murderous intent. They rushed to his side and surrounded him. "How dare you trespass into the Saintess Palace? Bastard, you don't know what's good for you." The 4 elite guards put their swords and sabers on his neck. They tied his hands behind his back and captured him. "Saintess, we didn't defend well enough. We actually let this person break into your palace. Please forgive us. Saintess, how should we deal with this guy who broke into the forbidden area?" The 2 leading guards bowed to Yun Yao and asked in fear and trepidation. Yun Yao looked at Ji Tianqing expressionlessly and said indifferently, "According to the rules of the Saintess's palace, this person should be beheaded. Take him to the ice prison and lock him up. Tianqing's punishment will come tomorrow." The 2 guards immediately cupped their fists and took the order. They escorted Ji Tianqing out. Ji Tianqing didn't have a chance to explain anything to Yun Yao. Even if he did, it would be useless. Yun Yao had lost all memories related to him. She had completely turned into a witch. He really couldn't explain himself. However, this matter had caused a commotion. He couldn't resist. He could only be escorted out of the room by the 4 guards and walked to the ice prison of the Saintess's palace. With his strength, of course, he could easily break free from the escort of the 4 guards. However, if he resisted, it would definitely cause a commotion and make a bigger commotion. The Heavenly Devil Palace was on the peak of the mountain. When the Devil General and the Devil King were alarmed, his identity would be exposed. All his previous efforts would be in vain, and he would even lose his life. Therefore, Ji Tianqing could only endure and bear all this silently. After 100 breaths, he was escorted to the door of the ice prison by the 4 guards. The so-called ice prison was located in the basement of the Saintess's palace. It was a small prison. The prison made of ice crystals was protected by a powerful array. The dozens of cells were also sealed by the power of the array. The 4 guards opened the door of the first cell and pushed him in rudely. "Boy, you are really bold. How dare you barge into the Saintess's palace? You really don't want to live. Boy, you are a new guard, right? You don't know the rules. You deserve to be executed. Boy, stay in the cell obediently and wait to be executed tomorrow." The guards looked at him mockingly and sneered. Then, they closed the door of the cell with a clang. After that, the 4 guards left one after another. The ice prison regained its silence. The light in the prison was dim, and the temperature was bone-chilling. Ji Tianqing stood quietly in the cell. He frowned and silently thought of a countermeasure. On the 3rd floor of the Saintess's palace, in Yunyao's palace, Ji Tianqing was escorted away by the guards. She was the only one left in the palace. She was still sitting cross-legged on the ice jade bed. She frowned and muttered in a low voice, "Who is this person? Why is he not afraid of death and sneaked into my palace twice? The words he said to me, what race's language was that? When I attacked, he could have dodged. Why didn't he? Looking at his reaction, he obviously knows me, but why can't I remember him at all?" She lowered her head and pondered for a long time. She could not find an answer. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, she saw a silver pearl necklace on the ground in front of the door. The pearl necklace made of star mithril glowed under the light. There was also a semicircular jade pendant strung on the necklace. Yunyao softly exclaimed. She quickly got off the bed and walked to the door. She picked up the pearl necklace and the jade pendant. She held them in her palm and looked at them. Her eyes flashed with deep astonishment as she murmured in puzzlement, "This jade pendant fell from his body. Why does he also have such a jade pendant? Why is it exactly the same as mine?" As she spoke, she untied the silver pearl necklace with the jade pendant hanging from her neck. The 2 pearl necklaces were exactly the same. The 2 semicircular jade pendants were put together to form a complete circular pendant. Chapter 1065. The simple and mysterious Lingxi bracelet shone with a dense white light. Yunyao held the jade pendant with both hands and stood there in a daze. Her expression and eyes became very complicated. The mysterious power emitted from the jade pendant invaded her mind, causing her to see strange images one after another. 2 people kept appearing in the images. One was a beautiful woman in a long white dress, and the other was a handsome young man in a white robe. Both of them were peerless geniuses. Whether it was their appearance, temperament, or style of conversation, they were like dragons and phoenixes among men. Moreover, this young man and woman were very compatible. It could be said that they were a match made in heaven. The 2 of them were loving and respectful to each other. They were like the happiest couple in the world. Yunyao looked at the images in her mind in a daze. She only felt that the woman in the white dress and the young man in the white robe were very familiar. The woman in the white dress had the same figure and appearance as her. It was like another her. The only difference was that she was as noble as a fairy and as holy as a goddess. As for the young man in the white robe, he made her feel an inexplicable sense of familiarity and longing. She missed him in the depths of her soul. Finally, another image appeared in her mind. It was a golden palace in the sea of clouds. It was decorated with lanterns and colored banners everywhere. It was very festive. She saw the beautiful woman in the white dress, wearing a wedding dress and a phoenix coronet as she married the young man in the white robe. Then, under the blessings and farewells of countless guests, the 2 of them boarded an exquisite and beautiful sedan and flew into the sky. Seeing this, Yunyao became more and more flustered. Her soul throbbed intensely. She felt uneasy and quickly put away the Lingxi bracelet. Swoosh! Suddenly, the memory images in her mind disappeared. She returned to the ice jade bed and sat down. She frowned and pondered. She was puzzled. How could this be? What kind of treasure is this jade pendant? Why do I keep wearing it? It seems like this jade pendant is very important to me. The scene I saw just now, whose sole memory was it? Why does it feel so familiar to me? Could it be that he is the young man in the white robe? We used to know each other, and love each other. Yunyao pondered for a long time with a complicated expression, but she still couldn't remember the past. She had no clue. Her mood was a little messy. After a long silence, she finally opened her mouth to call for the guard outside the sleeping chamber. Men! Hearing her shout, the two guards immediately entered the room and stood at the door. The two of them bowed in unison and said respectfully, "Your subordinates await your orders, Saintess." Yunyao frowned slightly and said in a cold and deep voice, "Lock Oolong up in the ice prison. Don't execute him for now. I will judge him personally after I return from the Yuyong tribe." The two guards were stunned for a moment. Clearly, they did not understand why the holy maiden suddenly changed her mind. However, the two of them didn't dare to ask any more questions. They hurriedly cupped their hands in obeisance and bowed as they retreated. After the two guards left, Yunyao was still sitting on the ice jade bed. Her mind was in a mess, so she couldn't meditate and cultivate anymore. She played with the Lingxi bracelet in her hand, frowning as she pondered. In the dark ice prison, there was no light. Only the ice crystal walls were faintly emitting a light blue brilliance. Ji Tianqing sat cross-legged in the cell with his eyes closed, thinking of a solution. Yao Yao's situation is very strange. Not only have her blood and flesh been demonized, but even her soul seems to have been demonized. The Devil Emperor must have used some kind of evil magic on her to make her like this. Otherwise, she would never have become the saintess of the devil race. She also wouldn't have helped the devil race to remove the curse. She also wouldn't have forgotten what happened in the past. He silently analyzed Yunyao's situation and thought about how to save Yunyao. Burial of Heaven, do you know what kind of secret technique the devil race has that can completely demonize a person and make them lose their memories? He asked Burial of Heaven using his divine soul. Burial of Heaven pondered for a moment before replying in a low voice, "I only know that the devil race has two kinds of vicious secret techniques that can make a person fall and become a devil. Judging from Yunyao's current situation, it seems that the Devil Emperor has used some kind of secret technique on her and turned her into a blood god." Ji Tianqing immediately frowned and asked in confusion, "Blood god? What kind of secret technique is that? Is there a way to save her?" Burial of Heaven said in a serious tone, "Blood god is a kind of evil and strange ancient devil Dao secret technique. The Devil Emperor wants to use the blood pool of 10,000 demons and the samurai soul altar to activate the powerful devil Dao power to erode Yunyao's body and demonize her blood and flesh. She will gradually become a blood god. Once she becomes a blood god, she will be under the Devil Emperor's control forever. Her consciousness and memories will be destroyed. Moreover, the blood god can continuously devour the blood of living beings to rapidly increase their strength and become extremely powerful. Legend has it that the devil god of the ancient times cultivated hundreds of blood gods. They were unstoppable in the world. Every blood god can reach the martial saint realm when they grow to their limit. If hundreds of blood gods work together to attack, even a god can't stop them." Burial of Heaven paused and said in a complicated tone, "If Yunyao has really been transformed into a blood god by the Devil Emperor, then there's nothing we can do. Not only her blood and body, but even her soul has been demonized. Her memories have completely disappeared. Now she is a puppet under the Devil Emperor. She only listens to the Devil Emperor and is loyal to the devil race. Not to mention you, she won't even remember her parents. If the Devil Emperor orders her to kill you or her parents, she won't be merciful. You can't even save yourself. How can you save her?" Ji Tianqing immediately became anxious and said in a worried tone, "No. No, there must be hope. Burial of Heaven, think about it again. Is there any way to wake Yunyao up?" Burial of Heaven was silent for a while, then said in a low voice, "Tianqing, maybe you should analyze another problem. Why didn't the Devil Emperor kill Yunyao? Why did he go through so much trouble to turn her into a blood god? After Yunyao became a blood god, why was she able to remove the curse on the devil race and let the devil race be reborn? Hearing Burial of Heaven's reminder, Ji Tianqing suddenly understood. That's right. It's too strange. In the ancient legends, the devil race was cursed by the goddess of Yaoguang. After Yao Yao became a blood god, she was able to remove the curse. Could it be that Yao Yao is related to the legendary goddess of Yaoguang? Burial of Heaven responded and said in a certain tone, "That's right. I think so too. Yin Yao must have something special about her. That's why the Devil Emperor went through so much trouble. If Yin Yao is really related to the goddess of Yaoguang, then she must be special. Maybe she can still keep her soul intact. You still have a chance to wake her up." Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed. After thinking for a while, he made up his mind. Yes, I haven't thoroughly checked Yao Yao's soul. Maybe I still have a chance to awaken her soul. Tomorrow, I will be beheaded. Yao Yao will also go to the Yuyong tribe. I don't know when she will come back. I can't stay here and wait for death. I must find a way to escape from the ice prison and find a chance to get close to her. Only then can I figure out what's going on. It just so happens that she will leave tomorrow and go to the Yuyong tribe thousands of miles away. I must escape from the ice prison and secretly follow her. I must find a chance to investigate her situation. As long as I am far away from the Heavenly Devil Palace, I don't have to worry about the Devil Emperor and the Demon Commander. I can use my methods to my heart's content. If there's no other way, I will kidnap Yao Yao and take her away from here. Then, I will find a way to wake her up later. After making up his mind, he opened his eyes and stood up. Chapter 1066. Ji Tianqing decided to give it his all. There were 2 soul-tempering arrays and a dozen heaven-origin arrays in the ice prison. To him, it was not difficult to break these arrays. He just needed to spend a lot of time. It was already late at night. There were still more than 4 hours before daybreak. After daybreak, Yin Yao would leave the Saintess Palace under the escort of the personal guards. Ji Tianqing had to break the ice prison's array before that and leave the Saintess Palace with Yun Yao and the personal guards. He estimated that time was tight. He did not dare to delay and immediately started to break the array. He used his pure heart Dharma eye to observe the array in the cell. Soon, he saw the structure of the array. After an hour, he started to break the array. He waved his palms and shot out hundreds of 5-colored lights. 2 hours later, he finally broke the soul-refining grand formation and the 2 heavenly origin formations that sealed the cell. He successfully opened the door of the cell and left the dark cell. Next, he still needed to break the ice prison seal. This soul-tempering array was more complicated and powerful. It was more difficult to break it. Ji Tianqing was anxious. However, he had to stay calm and break the array as fast as possible. Time passed quietly. The dark night sky outside the ice prison was gradually regaining its brightness. Finally, after 3 hours, he successfully broke the array that sealed the entire ice prison. There were 2 personal guards guarding the door of the ice prison. When Ji Tianqing broke the array, he was very discreet. He did not release too much energy. The 2 personal guards did not notice anything amiss. Their defense was very lax. Ji Tianqing used a secret technique and secretly escaped from the ice prison. When he returned to the first floor of the Saintess Palace, it was already dawn. Commander Hu and 50 personal guards were standing in the open space outside the palace. They were ready to go. Among the crowd, there was a jade carriage as big as a house. It was made of ice crystals and cold jade. Its design was simple and elegant. It was very noble. This was the Saint Lady's carriage, which required 8 personal guards to carry it. When Ji Tianqing arrived at the entrance of the palace, he saw the Saintess walk out of the palace. Under the service of 2 maids, she stepped onto the jade carriage. Phew! Luckily, I came in time and made it in time. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself that he was lucky. He didn't dare to waste any time. He quickly took out an invisibility talisman and stuck it on his body. Shwa! The invisibility talisman flashed with a white light, and quickly disappeared. Ji Tianqing's figure also became transparent and disappeared. He remained invisible, quietly walked out of the Saintess Palace, and blended into the personal guards. Then, Commander Hu shouted in a dignified voice, "Saintess, let's go." Then, 8 bodyguards carried the Holy Maiden's jade carriage and left the open space, rushing to the foot of the ice mountain. Commander Hu and more than 40 guards followed closely behind the jade chariot. The formation was neat, and the atmosphere was solemn. The ice crystal steps down the mountain were not wide. The 8 bodyguards carrying the jade carriage walked carefully, not daring to make any mistakes. Ji Tianqing followed closely behind the bodyguards. Seeing the team slowly descending the mountain, he was very anxious. Damn it! Why are these people walking so slowly? The invisibility talisman can only last for 15 minutes. If the invisibility talisman disappears after 15 minutes, and the team has not crossed the Blood River, then I will be exposed. The Blood River contained a mysterious power, and there was a sealing array set up. He couldn't break the array in front of everyone. He could only follow the Saintess team and cross the bridge of life and death on the Blood River to leave successfully. Unknowingly, 15 minutes passed. The bodyguards walked down the ice mountain and arrived at the foot of the mountain. Ji Tianqing thought to himself. It would take time to reach the Blood River from the foot of the mountain, and it would take a lot of time for the guards to open the bridge of life and death. He estimated that the invisibility talisman wouldn't last long. Before the bridge of life and death was opened, he would have to show his true form. Thinking of this, he was very worried. His eyes anxiously looked around, looking for a solution. Fortunately, when the bodyguards arrived at the foot of the mountain, they sped up and rushed to the Blood River as fast as the wind. The guards guarding the Blood River had already received news that the Saintess was leaving the palace. They opened the array and the bridge of life and death in advance. When the bodyguards arrived at the Blood River, a bloody bridge spanned across the Blood River. The bodyguards did not slow down at all. They stepped on the bridge and crossed the mysterious Blood River. After a while, when the bodyguards crossed the Blood River and set foot on the vast ice field, Ji Tianqing was really relieved. Phew! Just enough time. Finally, I made it out safely. He followed the bodyguards and ran on the ice field. He turned his head and looked behind him. He saw that the bridge of life and death above the Blood River was gradually disappearing. He took a last look at the ice mountain and the Saintess Palace. He thought to himself, after I leave today, I will take Yao Yao away no matter what. I will never let her come back here. The next time I come here, I will lead the elites and the army to destroy the demonic king completely. At the same time, the effect of the invisibility talisman was gradually disappearing. He was about to reveal his true form. However, he was already prepared. He immediately used a secret technique to enter the ice field. The bodyguards surrounded the jade carriage and sped on the ice field. He hid deep underground and would not be discovered by anyone. He had already made up his mind. When the bodyguards were far away from the heavenly demonic palace, he would find a chance to secretly kidnap Yunyao. Inside the ice mountain, there was a huge demonic cave. It was the commander palace of the Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander. In the evening, the Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander finished 2 days of meditation and walked out of the secret chamber. A bodyguard leader in black armor immediately walked up and bowed to him. Sir Demonic Commander, here is an urgent secret letter from White Mountain City. Please take a look. As he spoke, the bodyguard leader held a letter with both hands and handed it to the Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander. The Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander was stunned. He frowned and asked, an urgent secret letter from White Mountain City? Who sent it? What's going on? The bodyguard leader quickly replied, "Sir Demonic Commander, the person who sent the letter is the White Mountain City Governor's trusted bodyguard. They traveled day and night for 4 days to send this secret letter as quickly as possible." The Sky Barbarian Demonic Commander realized that something was wrong. He did not ask any more questions. He waved his hand and signaled the bodyguard leader to leave. Then, he quickly opened the envelope and took out the secret letter. He quickly read it. After a while, when he finished reading the contents of the secret letter, his expression changed. His only eye was filled with anger and coldness. General Gelii was actually killed. The murderer might be a blunder from the selection of bodyguards. This blunder killed General Gelii. He must have concealed his strength and disguised his identity. He deliberately became the saint's bodyguard. Could it be that he wants to harm the saint? Chapter 1067. 15 minutes later, in the meeting hall of the Demon Commander Palace. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander sat on the main seat with a gloomy face and a chilling look in his eyes. 2 Protector Commanders and 8 Elite Protectors stood in the hall with their armors and swords, waiting for orders. Seeing the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's gloomy face and chilling murderous aura, everyone was trembling in fear and did not even dare to breathe loudly. The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander looked at one of the Protector Commanders and asked, "Where is the Saintess? Where is the bodyguard named Oolong?" The Guard Commander hurriedly replied, reporting to Lord Demon Commander, "Early this morning, Her Highness the Saintess took 50 personal guards and went to the Yuyong tribe. The bodyguard named Oolong broke into the Saintess' bedroom for no reason and has been taken down by the Saintess Palace's protectors. He is in the ice prison and is waiting for the Saintess to punish him." The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander nodded and shouted, "Go to the ice prison now and bring him to see Ben Shui." The 2 Protector Commanders immediately cupped their fists and left the hall. They rushed to the ice prison in the Saintess Palace. The hall was quiet again as the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander waited patiently. About half an hour later, the 2 Guard Commanders came back with flustered looks on their faces. They rushed into the hall as fast as the wind. "Demon Commander. Something bad has happened. The bodyguard named Oolong is not in the ice prison. He has escaped." The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander's face changed when he heard the news. He was filled with murderous aura. "Bastard! Damn bastard! Something is wrong with him." The Sky Barbarian Demon Commander smashed the armrest of the Jade Throne in his anger. He stood up with a swoosh and shouted angrily, "The few of you, immediately bring people to search around the sacred mountain. You must find Oolong. I want to see him if he is alive or dead." The 2 Protector Commanders did not dare to hesitate. They immediately cupped their fists and left the hall with the Protectors to search. After the Protectors left, the Sky Barbarian Demon Commander frowned and thought for a while. He mumbled to himself, "The bodyguard named Oolong is probably here for the Saintess." The safety of the Saintess was at stake, and nothing could go wrong. Otherwise, Ben Shui would not be able to answer to His Majesty, the Nephilim King. This won't do. Ben Shui must immediately rush to the brave tribe and personally protect the Saintess. He must not give Oolong any chance to take advantage of this. After saying that, the Heaven Barbarian Demon Commander flew out of the hall. He turned into a stream of light and flew into the sky, rushing toward the valiant tribe as fast as lightning. When night fell, the personal guards finally arrived at the Yuyong tribe after a day of continuous travel. The valiant tribe was the closest medium-sized tribe to the Heavenly Devil Palace. This tribe was located in a wide valley between several snowy mountains. There were more than 80,000 people in the tribe, and the chief's strength had reached the half-step soul refinement realm. In addition, there were over 50 Heavenly Origin stage experts and over 300 Yuan Dan stage experts in the tribe. The younger generation of the demon race was also constantly producing geniuses with outstanding aptitude. In recent years, the brave hero tribe had developed very quickly and had become one of the top forces among the medium-sized tribes. The Demon Emperor had the intention of supporting this tribe and wanted it to quickly develop into a large tribe. Therefore, the Demon Emperor had asked the Saintess to personally come to the valiant tribe to baptize the young demon race and help them improve their aptitude. The personal guards carried the jade carriage and entered the valiant tribe. The chief, elders, and priests of the tribe had already received the news and were waiting respectfully at the entrance of the valley. After both parties met, the chief, elders, and priests of the tribe knelt down and bowed to express their gratitude and welcome to the Saintess. Then, the chief and the rest of the people welcomed the personal guards into the tribe. The Saintess and 2 maidservants were arranged to stay in the most luxurious palace in the tribe for a night's rest. The 50 personal guards were arranged to stay in the courtyards around the palace and were ready to listen to the Saintess' orders and instructions at any time. As for the baptism, of course, it would not be carried out tonight. The Saintess and the personal guards had come from afar, so they had to rest for a night and recharge their energy. The baptism ceremony would be carried out tomorrow. After an hour, the Saintess and the personal guards had settled down and the tribe regained its tranquility. In the palace where the Saintess was staying, there were specks of lights and it was very quiet. In a room on the top floor of the palace, 2 maidservants were guarding the door. They lowered their eyelids and waited for orders at any time. In the room, the Saintess Yunyao was sitting cross-legged on a cold jade bed. Her face was calm and her eyes were as cold as ice. She was thinking quietly. After a whole day, she had already calmed down. However, what had happened last night and the memory of the soul in the rhino bracelet still appeared in her mind, making her feel confused. She sat on the cold jade bed in a daze and still didn't understand what was going on. Suddenly, a slight wind came from the door of the room. Swoosh! The figure of a male demon appeared out of thin air at the door. The 2 maidservants were immediately alerted. They subconsciously wanted to draw their swords and shout. However, this young demon stretched out his palms as fast as lightning and slashed the necks of the 2 maidservants. With 2 muffled bangs, the 2 maids were knocked unconscious on the spot. Their bodies softly fell to the ground. Swoosh! The young demon's figure flashed and entered the room as fast as a gust of wind. He came in front of Yunyao. Yunyao had already woken up. When she saw the young demon's face, she immediately frowned and a cold light flashed in her eyes. It's you again. Oolong, you dared to escape from the ice prison and chase us here. Yunyao stared at Oolong with a cold face and scolded him with a cold voice. Without a doubt, Oolong was Ji Tianqing, who had followed the personal guards to the brave hero tribe. He looked at Yunyao with a complicated look and said in a low voice, Yao Yao, although you've been demonized and lost your memory, I will save you and find a way to wake you up. Last night, I left a jade pendant in your room. It's a gift from our master before our wedding. It's called the rhino bracelet. The rhino bracelet has 2 halves. You and I each have 1 half. The 2 halves are combined into one. The bracelet is engraved with the memories of our souls, recording every little thing that happened between us. Even if you've forgotten me, you should remember it as long as you see the bracelet. Yunyao didn't call the personal guards to catch them. She just looked at him with an expressionless face and listened to him quietly. After he finished talking, she took out 2 silver bead chains from her interspatial ring and presented them in front of Ji Tianqing. Is this the rhino bracelet you're talking about? Ji Tianqing was overjoyed when he saw that she had kept the rhino bracelet. He said with a gratified voice, Yao Yao, you finally remember the past and remember me? Yunyao looked at him indifferently and gently shook her head. Ji Tianqing frowned and kept silent for a while. Then, he said in a deep voice, no matter what, I'll help you awaken your memory. However, we have to leave this place as soon as possible. Yao Yao, I'm sorry to offend you. Chapter 1068. In Yun Yao's memories, she was the saintess of the demon race when she woke up from the blood pool of 10,000 demons. She had no past and no memories of the first 20 years. She didn't know where she came from or what she had experienced. She only knew that she was the saintess of the demon race and had to listen to the demon emperor. She had to perform a secret technique for the demon race to remove the bloodline curse. Of course, she didn't need to lower her head to anyone except the demon emperor. Every demon was afraid of her and revered her. They didn't dare to disobey her. Therefore, she didn't expect that Ji Tianqing would dare to attack her. When Ji Tianqing's palms grabbed her, she was stunned for a moment before she reacted. She subconsciously raised her palms to counterattack. However, her strength was far inferior to Ji Tianqing's. Before she could raise her arms, her shoulders were pressed down by Ji Tianqing. A majestic force pressed down on her, making her sit on the ice jade bed and unable to move. A majestic force gushed out of Ji Tianqing's palms and quickly drilled into her body, sealing her meridians and strength. She couldn't resist at all and was about to shout for help in a hurry. However, Ji Tianqing had already accumulated a majestic force of divine sense and hit her head, knocking her out on the spot. Ugh! Yun Yao's body shook and her face turned as pale as paper. Her eyes opened and closed a few times before she powerlessly closed them and fell into a coma. Ji Tianqing released her shoulders and looked at her with a complicated expression. He muttered to himself, "Yao Yao, I can only wrong you for the time being. After I help you awaken your memories, all of this will end." After saying that, he took out the broken sword burial of heaven and put the unconscious Yun Yao into the sword's world. He settled Yun Yao in the peaceful Earth City and let the Jinshan King and his wife guard her. After doing this, he quietly left the palace and flew into the dark night sky, quickly escaping from the brave tribe. His movements were very stealthy. He did not make any movements, and was not discovered by anyone. After all, there was no soul refinement realm expert in the entire Valiant tribe. The strongest tribe chief was only a half-step soul refinement realm expert. After escaping from the Yuyong tribe, he flew in the night sky and headed straight to the south. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to get as far away from the demon emperor's lair as possible. Because he knew that paper couldn't wrap fire, and this matter would be exposed very soon. At that time, the Devil Emperor would definitely send out a few devil marshals and a large number of experts to hunt him down. Unknowingly, 2 hours passed. Under the curtain of night, the brave sword tribe was quiet and silent. Tens of thousands of demon commoners were sleeping. Right at this moment, a dazzling and eye-catching blood-red light flew over from the distant horizon. It flew into the hero tribe as fast as lightning. Shwa! The bloody light flew directly to the chief's residence and landed in front of the gate of a palace. After the bloody light faded, a tall and sturdy figure appeared. It was a middle-aged man from the demon race. He was more than 3 meters tall and had 4 wings and 6 arms. He exuded a strong murderous aura, and the single eye on his forehead was surging with cold light. He was the Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal who had rushed over. There were 2 guards on both sides of the gate of the palace. When they saw the Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal, the 2 of them immediately went up to greet him. "Sir, may I know who you are?" The Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal did not waste any time with them. He ordered coldly, "Ask your tribe chief to come out and meet Benchuai." The 2 guards looked at each other in shock. They quickly turned and entered the palace to report the news to the tribe chief. After a while, the tribe chief rushed out of the palace in a panic and came to the gate. When he saw the Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal, his expression changed. He bowed in fear and said, "Greetings, Sir Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal." The Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal looked at him sharply and asked in a deep voice, "Where is the saint?" The tribe chief was stunned and quickly answered, "Sir Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal, I've arranged for the saint to stay in the Sky Brave Palace, bring Benchuai there." The Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal shouted expressionlessly. The tribe chief did not dare to ask further, nor did he dare to disobey. He quickly extended his hand and made a "please" gesture. "Please follow me, Sir Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal." Then, he personally led the Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal to the most luxurious Sky Brave Palace in the tribe. When the two of them arrived at the Sky Brave Palace, the Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal asked the tribe chief, "Which room is the saint staying in?" The tribe chief pointed at the third floor of the palace and answered honestly, "She's in the room in the middle of the third floor." "Wait here." The Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal ordered and entered the palace alone. When he reached the third floor of the palace and walked to the door of one of the rooms, he saw two maids lying on the ground in front of the door. They were both unconscious. When he saw that, his expression changed, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Damn it! Could it be that I'm still a step too late?" Without saying a word, he pushed open the door and barged into the room. There was no doubt that the room was empty. There was only a dim light in the room. The saint was nowhere to be seen. Arg! The Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal was enraged. He raised his hand and slammed the wall of the room, shattering it into pieces. A muffled explosion reverberated in the night sky. Countless rubble and bricks also burst out and scattered around the palace. The huge commotion immediately woke up the saint's bodyguards. The tribe chief was also shocked. He quickly flew to the door of the room on the third floor and asked, "Lord Demon Marshal, what happened?" The Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal stood in the room. He was so angry that his body was shaking. His face was distorted, and his body was emitting a raging blood flame. "The saint is missing. Ben Shui is sure that the saint has been kidnapped by the Oolong. Pass down my order. Gather all the men and search the tribe and the surrounding area immediately. No matter what, we have to find the saint and the Oolong even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground." "What? The saint is missing?" The tribe chief was dumbfounded. He opened his eyes wide and stood rooted to the ground. The Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal ignored him. He flew out of the palace in a flash and hovered above the tribe. He released his spiritual energy to search for clues. After a while, the tribe chief came to his senses and passed down the order of the Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal. He personally led a large group of experts to search for the saint. The news of the saint's disappearance spread quickly in the tribe. Dozens of bodyguards were so frightened that they did not know what to do. They searched everywhere anxiously. Countless people in the valiant tribe were also shocked. The news was spread by word of mouth, and soon, the whole tribe was in an uproar, causing a great commotion. The valiant tribe was destined to be restless tonight. If they could not find the saint, the 50 bodyguards would be executed. Even the Sky Barbarian Devil Marshal would be severely punished by the demonic king. Chapter 1069. The night passed by quickly. Ji Tianqing flew tens of thousands of miles at top speed and finally left the valiant tribe and the heavenly devil palace. When dawn broke, he was flying over a snowy mountain. It was a world of ice and snow all around, and the cold wind was as sharp as a knife. The world was a vast expanse of white. At this moment, Yunyao woke up and was making a fuss about going out. The Golden Mountain King couple did not dare to hurt her, so they could only temporarily seal her in the room and quickly report the situation to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing made a prompt decision and landed on the snowy mountain. He used the earth escape technique and drilled into the snowy mountain. He temporarily dug a cave in the middle of the mountain and set up 2 defensive formations to protect the cave. Then, his soul left his body and sealed Oolong's body in the seal of mountains and rivers. He took out his true body and his soul returned to his body, restoring his original appearance. After doing all this, he took out the broken sword and opened the entrance to the sword world. Swoosh! The cold, pitch-black broken sword flashed with a dazzling white light. Immediately, Yunyao flew out of the sword world and landed in front of Ji Tianqing. She obviously did not expect that she would suddenly appear in a cave in another space when she was still in the palace in peaceful Earth City. She was a little stunned. After looking around a few times, she stared at Ji Tianqing. When she saw Ji Tianqing's appearance, her body shook and she frowned in confusion. You're not a demon. Who are you? Ji Tianqing looked at her calmly and said in a calm tone, Yao Yao, I'm Ji Tianqing, your husband. If you saw the soul memory in the Lingxi bracelet, you should remember me. Yun Yao fell silent. She stared at him with a complicated expression. She was confused and puzzled. Of course, she remembered the scene recorded in the Lingxi bracelet. The beautiful young man and woman were her and Ji Tianqing. But those scenes were very unfamiliar to her. She could not remember them at all. After a moment of silence, she asked indifferently, Where is this? Ji Tianqing saw that she was calm and did not overreact. He felt comforted. This is the wilderness, on a nameless snow mountain. Pausing for a moment, he saw Yun Yao frown, so he added another sentence. I know you want to go back to the Saintess Palace, but that's impossible. I risked my life to bring you out with great difficulty. I can't let you go back. Yun Yao looked at him expressionlessly. Her eyes were calm and indifferent. She asked, What do you want to do? This was the hinterland of the demon race. The entire northern desert continent was filled with demons. As a human, you actually dare to barge in here. If you are discovered by the devil race, only death awaits you. Ji Tianqing listened to her words and thought to himself, although Yao Yao doesn't have any memories of the past, but from her words, she obviously doesn't have much feelings for the demon race. Moreover, she doesn't reject the human race. She probably already accepted the memories of the Lingxi bracelet and understood my intentions. Thinking of this, he struck while the iron was hot. He said, Yao Yao, the reason why I risked my life to cross half of the profound sky continent and sneak into the demon emperor's lair to find you is because I am your husband and you are my wife. We once swore an oath of eternal love. We will live and die together, and never leave each other. You once risked your life to save me. When you are in danger, I will also risk everything to save you. Even if you have lost your memories, you should know that you are not a demon. You were only demonized by the demon emperor using a secret technique. You and I are both humans. The soul memories recorded in the Lingxi bracelet are the bits and pieces between you and me. This is the best proof. Yun Yao was still silent. She slowly squatted down and sat on the ground. She tugged at the hem of her white dress and covered her knees and calves. She stepped on the cold rock with her bare feet. She hugged her head with both arms and lay on her knees. She looked at the ground in confusion and said calmly, Can you tell me about the past? I vaguely have some impressions, but every time I think about it, I get a splitting headache. Sometimes, I wonder if I'm missing some memories. It's like I have lost the most important thing. Seeing her reaction and hearing her words, Ji Tianqing was even more gratified and excited. He thought to himself, that's great. Yao Yao finally doesn't reject me anymore. It seems that she has only been demonized for a short time. There is still a chance to save and awaken her. He quickly sat down beside Yun Yao and recalled the past with a smile. He said in a gentle voice, More than 2 years ago, you were the chief disciple of the Sky Pillar sect. You were also the #1 genius of the Tianjin region and a proud daughter of heaven whose name shook the 10 nations. At that time, you brought Hao Meng and Bai Wuxian to the Qingyun kingdom to preside over the entrance examination of the Sky Pillar sect. In the woods on the outskirts of the imperial city, I was chased by several masked assassins. At that time, you flew across the sky on the white crane spirit beast and saved me. Ji Tianqing began to tell Yun Yao about the past. From the day they met, he recounted in detail everything that had happened in the past 2 years. Those ordinary and warm days, as well as those dangerous and unpredictable encounters, as well as the wedding ceremony and the celebratory memories that shook the world. He told her everything that had happened between the two of them. Yun Yao listened quietly. Her expression didn't change much, but the look in her eyes became more and more complicated. When she heard something important, her soul would also tremble, and some fragmented memories and images would emerge. After a long silence, she slowly raised her head and looked at Ji Tianqing. She said in a complicated tone, "Although I still can't remember the past and forget who you are, I don't know why I feel so. Whenever I see you, my soul will throb and I can't help but feel a sense of closeness and trust. Maybe I should believe what you said. We used to be the closest people. But I don't have any memories of the past. The current you is still a stranger to me. I don't know what to do." After a pause, she said with a sincere expression, "I'm missing. The Devil Emperor and the Devil Commander will definitely be very angry. They will find me no matter what. You'll definitely be surrounded in this northern desert continent with no way to escape. I don't want you to get hurt or even lose your life because of this. How about you let me go back?" Ji Tianqing quickly shook his head and persuaded her with a firm tone, "Ao Yao, it wasn't easy for me to save you. How can I give up now? Won't all my previous efforts be in vain? Don't worry, I have a way to save you. I'll definitely find a way to help you recover your memories." Yun Yao frowned and pondered for a while. Then, she asked him, "What can you do?" Ji Tianqing gazed into her eyes and said gently, "To help you recover your memories, I have to figure out your situation and find out the reason." Chapter 1070. Yun Yao was a little hesitant. Ji Tianqing didn't urge her. He watched her silently and waited for her decision. Anyway, he had already thought it through. Even if Yun Yao didn't cooperate, he would take action by force. In such a situation and environment, he couldn't waste any time. After a while, Yun Yao said with a serious expression, "I believe you this time. I hope you didn't lie to me." Ji Tianqing nodded and said with a smile, "You are my wife. Why would I lie to you?" Yun Yao didn't say anything else. She sat cross-legged on the ground and closed her eyes quietly. She restrained her mind and consciousness, remained calm, and didn't move at all. Ji Tianqing didn't waste any time. He quickly released an invisible divine soul power and invaded her mind. He had checked Yun Yao's physical condition before. After that, he analyzed it and asked the Burial of Heaven for advice. In the end, he came to the conclusion that the crux of the problem was probably in Yun Yao's soul. Therefore, he had to thoroughly check Yun Yao's soul to find the real reason. Yun Yao didn't resist. His divine soul successfully entered Yun Yao's mind. He could clearly see that Yun Yao's mind was wrapped in a ball of dark purple devil qi, and her soul was floating quietly in the devil qi. His divine soul passed through the devil qi and entered Yun Yao's soul. Then he found that Yun Yao's soul had indeed undergone a mutation. A normal person's soul was a ball of white soul mist. It would roll gently and condense into a little white mist person. However, Yun Yao's soul was dark purple. The little person condensed by her soul was also purple. She was wearing a purple dress and looked beautiful, but her temperament was cold and evil. When Ji Tianqing's divine soul power approached, her little person was immediately on guard and launched an attack angrily. Ji Tianqing hurriedly retreated and dodged. He circled around her soul and observed her situation. As the soul humanoid continued to attack, the demonic qi that enveloped his soul began to fluctuate violently, churning violently. The power of the devil qi was extremely insidious. It constantly corroded Ji Tianqing's soul, trying to corrode and demonize him. Fortunately, his divine soul power was extremely strong. For the time being, the devil qi couldn't do anything to him, let alone demonize his soul. Ji Tianqing's divine soul power continued to wander around Yun Yao's mind, probing deeper and deeper. Soon, he discovered a scene that shocked him to the core. In the deepest part of Yun Yao's mind, there was actually a thumb-sized blue pearl floating in the air. Inside the translucent pearl, there was a tiny person made of white soul mist. It was none other than Yun Yao. Of course, this little white soul was Yun Yao's original appearance. She was wearing a long white dress. Her appearance was beautiful, and her temperament was cold and holy. She was like a fairy from the 9 heavens. She quietly floated in the sea blue orb, as if she had fallen into a deep sleep, unaware of everything in the outside world. Yao Yao. This is Yao Yao's soul. Ji Tianqing was pleasantly surprised. He was excited and agitated. He immediately realized the crux of the problem and vaguely guessed the real reason. I understand now. There are actually 2 souls in Yao Yao's mind. One is the original her, sealed in the orb and in a deep sleep. The other soul is the new devil soul that was born after she was demonized and turned into the blood god Sun. The current Yao Yao's body is under the control of the devil soul, so she has lost her past memories and forgotten about me. Thinking of this, he quickly manipulated his divine soul power and approached the sea blue orb. As he got closer, he could clearly feel that the sea blue orb was extremely mysterious and powerful. It contained an ancient and vigorous power. Although this sea blue orb quietly floated in Yun Yao's mind and didn't actively emit light and power, it seemed to be very mysterious and hidden. However, Ji Tianqing could feel that the grade and power of this orb was no less than his sky-mending orb. It was definitely a rare divine item in the world. It seems that this mysterious orb is protecting Yao Yao's soul, which is why her soul has survived until now. Otherwise, after she was demonized and turned into the blood god Sun, her soul would have been destroyed long ago. Through the sea blue orb, he stared at the sleeping Yun Yao's soul and called out with his divine soul power, Yao Yao. Wake up quickly. I'm here to save you. However, he called out to the small soul person in the sea blue orb more than 10 times, but there was still no response. Helpless, he could only withdraw his divine soul power and temporarily leave Yun Yao's mind. Yun Yao's soul was shaken, and her face was slightly pale. She closed her eyes and adjusted her breathing. The cave was quiet. Ji Tianqing frowned and thought of a solution. I found the crux of the problem. Yao Yao has 2 souls, one righteous and one evil. I must find a way to eliminate the demonized soul. Only when Yao Yao's soul has taken control of her body can she regain her memories and consciousness. At this time, Burial of Heaven's voice rang in his mind and reminded him, after solving the problem of her soul, you still have to help her get rid of the devil blood and solve the problem of her body being demonized. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said in a heavy tone, that's right. Only by eliminating her devil soul and devil blood can she return to normal. Burial of Heaven said in a serious tone, however, the demon emperor used the ancient demon way and borrowed the power of the 10,000 demon blood pool and the samurai's soul altar to demonize her into the blood god Sun. Her devil soul and devil blood are deeply rooted and powerful. They are very difficult to eliminate. Even if I can't do anything, how can you eliminate them? Moreover, in the process of eliminating her devil soul and devil blood, if any accident happens, she will die. Ji Tianqing's expression immediately changed, and his mood was incomparably heavy. He pondered for a long time and finally made up his mind. He said in a heavy tone, no matter what, I have to try. I will use Kenshin's secret art, the white heart demon subduing art, and borrow the power of the heaven-mending orb. I hope it will succeed. Burial of Heaven responded and said in a low voice, all right, then there's no time to lose. Quickly cast the art. I will protect you and suppress the power of your soul. Ji Tianqing no longer hesitated and quickly woke up Yun Yao who was meditating. He said to her, Yao Yao, I found the root of the problem. Cooperate with me one more time. In just a few hours, I can restore your soul and memories and let you understand the whole story. Yun Yao looked at him with a struggling and hesitant expression. She pursed her lips and remained silent for a long time. Then, she nodded slightly and said, "Reason tells me that I can't cooperate with you and I can't trust you. However, there seems to be a voice in the depths of my soul that keeps telling me to trust you. I'll give you one last chance. It's limited to 6 hours. If you still don't succeed after 6 hours, I will leave this place and return to the Holy Maiden Palace." Ji Tianqing nodded with a serious expression and said, "All right, it's a promise." Yun Yao nodded and closed her eyes again. She gathered her mind and soul and entered an ethereal state. Chapter 1071. The White Heart Demon Subduing Art was a secret art that specialized in restraining the devil race. Ji Tianqing knew very well that Yun Yao was currently under the control of the devil soul. Her thoughts and consciousness were controlled by the devil soul. Yun Yao was only willing to give him a chance because she believed him subconsciously in the depths of her soul. Once the power of the White Heart Demon Subduing Art entered Yun Yao's mind, it would definitely hurt the devil soul. At that time, Yun Yao would have to resist with all her might. Therefore, he had made preparations in advance. He used the power of his divine soul to seal Yun Yao's meridians and essence core so that she couldn't use her devil soul, move, or resist. Swoosh! The power of the White Heart Demon Subduing Art poured out of his palms and turned into a sacred golden light that flooded into Yun Yao's mind. Immediately, the dark purple devil chi in her mind was dispersed by the golden light and surged violently. If the sacred golden light was like the sun, then the dark purple devil chi was like ice and snow. Any devil chi that was enveloped by the golden light would be dispelled and quickly dissipate. Yun Yao's expression changed dramatically. She opened her eyes wide and glared at Ji Tianqing. Although she couldn't speak, her eyes were filled with anger and hatred. She seemed to be blaming Ji Tianqing for treating her like this. The sacred golden light spread out in her mind and kept dispelling the dark purple devil chi. Her mind was fierce and chaotic. She only felt pain as if she was being cut by a knife. Her soul felt like it was being torn apart. The intense pain caused her face to turn ghastly pale and bloodless. Her pupils surged with purple light, revealing hatred and killing intent. "Yao Yao, I'm sorry. I had no choice. This was the only way to wake you up." Ji Tianqing looked at her with sincere eyes and murmured in a low voice. He couldn't bear to look into Yun Yao's eyes. He didn't want to see her eyes filled with hatred and murderous intent. Therefore, he closed his eyes and focused on casting the spell. Soon, the power of the White Heart Demon Subduing Art removed most of the devil chi in Yun Yao's mind. The remaining devil chi had already retreated into the dark purple soul humanoid. In his empty mind, there was only a ball of dark purple demonic fog that wrapped around the purple demonic soul. She roared angrily, glaring at the divine golden light with incomparable hatred, desperately dodging and fleeing. Ji Tianqing continued to release even more powerful spiritual power, causing the divine golden light to fill her mind, forcing her to have nowhere to hide. Finally, she was forced to the point where she had nowhere to run. She put up a desperate struggle, desperately resisting the purification of the divine golden light. "You bastard! You keep saying that I'm your wife and that you won't hurt me, but what about now? Not only do you want to remove my power, but you also want to kill me. You liar! You have a human face but the heart of a beast. You are treacherous and despicable." The devil soul midget cursed with a ferocious expression. He hated Ji Tianqing to the core. Ji Tianqing said to her through his divine soul, "Yes, Yun Yao is my wife. I will protect her even if I have to sacrifice my life. I will never hurt her. But you are not her. You are just a demonic soul created by the Demon King using an ancient demonic technique. You are the one who controls Yao Yao's body, mind, and consciousness. As long as I purify and dispel you, Yao Yao's soul will wake up." The devil soul midget was stunned for a moment. Then, he shouted even more angrily, "Nonsense! I am her, and she is me. You actually want to destroy your wife's soul with your own hands. To tell you the truth, His Majesty the Demon King has set up a soul lamp for me. Once you kill me, His Majesty the Demon King will immediately sense it and find your location. At that time, even if I die, His Majesty the Demon King will kill you and bury you with me. Ji Tianqing was stunned. He frowned hesitantly. Damn it! I should have guessed that the Demon King's means would not be so simple. He really has a backup plan. He was secretly angry, anxious, and helpless. The Devil Soul Midget saw that he was silent and his expression kept changing. He sneered and said, "You bastard. Let me go now. As long as you let me go, I can pretend that nothing happened. You can also escape safely." Ji Tianqing came to his senses. His expression and eyes became firm again. He said resolutely, "Don't even think about it. Even if the Demon King finds out, I will purify you." Then, he performed the White Heart Demon subduing spell with all his might. He released endless sacred golden light toward the Devil Soul Midget. The Devil Soul Midget was shocked. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Stop. If you don't stop, I will self-explode. By then, my body and soul will be destroyed and I will disappear completely." Indeed, once the Devil Soul Midget detonated, not only would the Devil Soul Midget be destroyed, but Yun Yao's body and soul would also be destroyed. Ji Tianqing felt that this was a tricky situation. He hesitated and thought about it. At this moment, the voice of the Burial of Heaven sounded in his mind. He said in a deep voice, "Tianqing, don't worry. I will help you suppress the Devil Soul. Even if she self-explodes, I will not let her destroy Yun Yao's body. Also, you can try using the Heaven-Mending Orb. It might be effective." Ji Tianqing was relieved. He quickly activated the power of the Heaven-Mending Orb and released a sacred white light into Yun Yao's mind. Swoosh! That mysterious white light immediately enveloped the Devil Soul Midget. The power of the white light was extremely powerful. No power could stop it. Even if the Devil Soul Midget struggled desperately and wanted to self-explode in desperation, it was still suppressed. Ji Tianqing could clearly see that the mysterious white light was constantly devouring the dark purple demon qi and eroding the Devil Soul Midget. In just 10 breaths, the demon qi protecting the Devil Soul Midget was completely devoured. Then, the Devil Soul Midget shrank rapidly. Its power was constantly draining and dissipating. That's great. The Heaven-Mending Orb is really amazing. It can purify and devour the Devil Soul Midget. She can't resist. Ji Tianqing was full of gratification and excitement. He patiently waited for the result. About 15 minutes later, the Devil Soul Midget was completely devoured by the Heaven-Mending Orb and disappeared completely. Yun Yao's mind returned to normal. There was no trace of demon qi left. After the Devil Soul Midget was eliminated, her physical body also fell into a deep sleep. It sat on the ground without any reaction and didn't move at all. Ji Tianqing quickly retrieved the mysterious white light. His divine soul continued to penetrate Yun Yao's mind and came near the aquamarine orb. He saw that the aquamarine orb had become even clearer. Its power was also more stable and majestic. Without the suppression of the Devil Soul and Demon Qi, the aura of the aquamarine orb became stronger. Yun Yao's soul midget also gradually woke up. Seeing this, Ji Tianqing finally heaved a sigh of relief. He retrieved his divine soul and sat in front of Yun Yao. He silently circulated his energy and adjusted his breathing. About an hour later, the extremely weak Yun Yao gradually regained her consciousness and senses. Her soul took control of her mind and controlled her physical body and consciousness. She was truly awake. When she slowly opened her eyes, they had also regained their clarity. The dark purple demon qi had also faded a lot. Chapter 1072. Ji Tianqing's voice was gentle and low. His tone was a little complicated. In just a few words, there was too much sadness and sorrow. Only he knew that he had waited for this moment for too long. For this moment, he had traveled more than half of the profound sky continent and experienced countless life and death situations. Fortunately, he had resolved countless dangers with his extraordinary perseverance and strength. Finally, he had waited for this day. Yunyao stared at him and pursed her lips tightly. Her clear eyes were filled with joy and excitement. Then, her eyes were covered with a layer of mist as tears welled up in her eyes. Two sparkling and translucent teardrops quietly slid down from her eyes. She remained silent and didn't say anything. She only stretched out her arms and threw herself into Ji Tianqing's embrace, hugging his neck tightly. Ji Tianqing was also filled with emotion and excitement. His face was filled with gratification. He hugged Yunyao tightly in his arms and closed his eyes. He used his cheek to gently rub her long hair and forehead, gently caressing them. Yao Yao, it's all over now. You've finally woken up. He gently patted Yunyao's back and gently comforted Yunyao, who was crying silently. At this moment, the cold and dark cave was no longer cold and lonely. The atmosphere had become warm. Yunyao quietly lay in his arms and sobbed for a long time. Then, she wiped the tears from her beautiful face. She raised her head to look at Ji Tianqing and stared into his eyes. She slowly stretched out her hands to hold his cheeks and said softly, Tianqing, you've suffered for the past 10 months. Her voice was a little choked, and her eyes were still a little red. Although she did not know what Ji Tianqing had gone through in the past 10 months, she knew that Ji Tianqing had been through a lot. However, Ji Tianqing had broken into the northern desert alone and rescued her from the Saintess Palace. It was already an extremely dangerous thing. She didn't need to ask to guess that in the past few months, Ji Tianqing was definitely in more pain and danger than she was. Ji Tianqing raised his hands and held her soft little hands. He gently shook his head and said, Yao Yao, as long as I can wake you up and see you again, I won't suffer. Everything will be worth it. Yunyao's heart was once again touched by his simple words of love, and a strong sense of longing and regret arose in her heart. The two of them hugged each other tightly again, whispering their thoughts and asking about what had happened in the past 10 months. At the same time, in the heavenly devil palace tens of thousands of miles away, the ice mountain was filled with a thick murderous aura. Even the blood river at the foot of the mountain was more turbulent than usual. Thousands of guards of the demon clan left the ice mountain in groups, rushing in all directions to search the ice plains and snow mountains. At the peak of the ice mountain, in the discussion hall of the heavenly devil palace, the tall and burly ancient demon emperor, who had 2 heads and a head full of silver hair, held the demon god scepter in his hand and sat on the demon emperor's throne. His face was cold, and his body was filled with murderous intent. All 4 of his eyes were bloodshot. In the discussion hall, there were 3 tall and burly demon clan powerhouses quietly waiting for orders. 2 of them stood tall and straight. One of them was a male demon wrapped in black armor. He was the great demon commander Mingyi. The other male demon was wearing purple armor, a scarlet cape, and a black iron half-mask that covered half of his face. This person's strength was second only to the great demon commander Mingyi. He was the second demon commander, Duan Hun. He was a mysterious powerhouse with a gloomy and cold temperament, like a ghost. As for the third demon clan powerhouse, he was the sky barbarian demon commander. However, he was different from Mingyi and Duan Hun. He didn't dare to stand. Instead, he knelt in the discussion hall and buried his head deep in his chest, as if he was admitting his guilt and accepting his death. The atmosphere in the discussion hall was extremely stifling, such that the dozen or so guards standing in the corner did not even dare to breathe loudly. The ancient demon emperor held his scepter and stared at the sky barbarian demon commander coldly. He said coldly, Yunyao may not be a subject of my race, but she will become the blood god Sion and be under my control. In the future, she will definitely be a sharp blade under my command. She will be far more useful and powerful than any of you. Moreover, she has the Neptunian divine pearl. She's the reincarnation of a fragment of goddess Yaoguang's soul. When I carried out the blood god Sion plan back then, I warned you not to underestimate her and not to let anything happen to her. And in the end, I've only been in seclusion for a month, and such a huge thing has happened. The demon emperor's voice was very cold. It was filled with heavy anger and hatred, which made everyone shiver. They felt fear from the bottom of their souls. Sky Barbarian, I trusted you, which was why I sent you to choose a personal guard. However, you have not been loyal to your duty, nor have you investigated the candidates for the personal guard. Now, the saintess has gone missing. She has been taken away by a personal guard. Who can use a secret technique to remove the bloodline curse for my people? Who can baptize my people and give them a new lease of life? How can I bear such a huge loss? The Sky Barbarian demon commander immediately trembled. He kowtowed and admitted his mistake. Your Majesty, this is all because of my negligence. It's all my fault. Please punish me, Your Majesty. I would rather die for my sins. The demon emperor frowned and scolded coldly, even if you kowtow and admit your mistake, even if you commit suicide before me, what's the point? The most important thing right now is to find the saintess immediately. Find out who that blunder is. The Sky Barbarian demon commander hurriedly nodded and said, Your Majesty, I personally went to the Yuyong tribe the night of the incident to investigate. I'm certain that the saintess has been taken away by the blunder. It's very likely that she has fled to the south. In the past few days, I've sent out over 12,000 guards. They've been split into over 1,000 teams to search the area within a radius of several 100,000 kilometers. In addition, this subordinate has also issued an order to mobilize the elite guards of dozens of tribes to conduct a search in the surrounding area. Before he could finish, a guard commander hurriedly strode into the hall and rushed into the hall in a panic. Your Majesty, something bad has happened. Hearing this voice, everyone immediately turned to look at him. The demon commanders immediately recognized that this guard commander was in charge of guarding the Life Spirit Palace and the Life Spirit Lamp. At the same time, the guard commander rushed into the hall and knelt down on one knee. He said in fear and trepidation, Your Majesty, the saintess's Life Spirit Lamp has extinguished. This sudden news caused everyone's bodies to tremble, and their eyes were filled with shock. The three demon commanders sensed that something bad had happened. Their hearts were filled with fear and despair. The demon emperor's expression changed drastically. In a flash, he rushed out of the hall and turned into a black fog of demonic chi, rushing toward the Life Spirit Palace. The three demon commanders did not dare to hesitate. They quickly turned and left the hall, rushing toward the Life Spirit Palace. When everyone arrived at the Life Spirit Palace, they saw the demon emperor standing in the hall. There were a few rows of ice crystal cabinets on both sides of the hall. There were hundreds of strange-looking Life Spirit lamps on them. Each Life Spirit lamp was lit with a faint blue soul fire. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.